Chapter 665. When Xiao Jin arrived at Ming Qingyu's house, Yang Qilu was still asleep. However, she wasn't as calm as she was at the beginning. Yang Qilu's brows were tightly furrowed in her sleep, as if she was extremely uneasy. Occasionally, her body would twitch. All these signs indicated that her experience in the backtrack formation wasn't as peaceful as it seemed. At first, Ming Qingyu was still flustered, but when he saw Xiao Jin, he relaxed a lot. He couldn't help but ask Xiao Jin, "She should be fine now, right?" Xiao Jin shook his head. "She's fine. She's just met with an exciting point in her life. Whether she awakens or not, there will always be an end." Yang Qilu felt that her life had always been a tragedy. When she was 15 years old, she felt someone holding her down in the middle of the night. She opened her eyes in horror and found that it was a completely unfamiliar face. No, it wasn't unfamiliar either. It was a famous old bachelor in the village. He hadn't married in his entire life because his family was poor and couldn't find a wife. Right now, that ugly old face was looking at Yang Qilu lecherously. Feng Xiangli's voice came from outside the door. "Hurry up, there are still people waiting." The old bachelor waved his hand. "I know." He looked at Yang Qilu with a perverted smile. Even though Yang Qilu was young, she knew what was going on. She looked at the old bachelor and her eyes widened. She screamed. But before she could say anything, the other party quickly covered her mouth. "Sure, baby girl, I gave your mother a few dozen yuan. Tonight you're mine." A few dozen yuan, a few dozen yuan. Hearing this, Yang Qilu felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She couldn't believe that something like this would happen to her. Tears flowed down her cheeks. They were tears of despair. How could this happen? Why would her mother do such a thing? While she was crying, the old bachelor didn't care so much and started leaning on Yang Qilu. Yang Qilu was terrified. Her body instinctively resisted, but she ended up kicking between the old bachelor's legs. The old bachelor's expression changed and turned ferocious in an instant. The pain was so intense that he didn't have the strength to restrain Yang Qilu. Somehow, Yang Qilu found the energy to push him away and crawl out. She screamed and ran out the door. Because she had suddenly run out, her parents were just outside, so they didn't manage to stop Yang Qilu. The two of them looked at each other, and Feng Xiangli immediately said, "Not good. If the people in the village knew about this, they would be scolded behind their backs." They also knew that what they had done was dirty and unspeakable. Her parents chased after Yang Qilu, scolding her as they chased after her. "What are you running for, you wretched girl? Hurry up and come back, you money-losing thing." Yang Qilu was scared out of her wits. She didn't dare to go back. His scalp went numb. Other than running, he didn't know what else he could do. But in the end, she was small and weak and couldn't run. After a while, she heard the shouting behind her getting closer and closer. Her heart turned cold, and in a fluster, she stepped on a stone and fell to the ground again. Feng Xiangli caught up and slapped her in the face. "Pa!" A crisp sound was heard, accompanied by a burning pain. Chapter 666. Yang Qilu began to wail loudly, "Mom, no, no." She was screaming and struggling. Everyone in the village could hear her wails. But they all thought that Feng Xiangli was hitting the child again. It was common for her to hit the child, so no one could stop her. Those who couldn't stand it and tried to stop it would be bitten by Feng Xiangli and her husband, who would scold them for being nosy. The village couldn't control such a scoundrel, so they couldn't do anything about Yang Qilu's situation. Feng Xiangli was afraid that she would scream something she shouldn't, so she joined forces with Yang Qilu's father to cover her mouth. She pinched Yang Qilu's flesh and scolded her through gritted teeth. "You damned girl. Don't you know that the family can't afford to eat? What's wrong with asking you to contribute to the family? You're just a money loser, and that's all you can do. You have to go today even if you don't want to. You're just a money loser now." Yang Qilu's father covered her mouth and said coldly, "Qilu, I don't want to do this either, but I have no choice. I'm not that capable, and we still have to take care of your brother. We have no choice." With her mouth covered, Yang Qilu could only whimper in despair. Her voice couldn't stop wriggling. The strength of a person in a desperate situation was shocking. They couldn't carry Yang Qilu away, so they could only hold her down and try to drag her away by force. Feng Xiangli covered her mouth with all her might, but she was afraid that she would suffocate her to death. She grabbed her shoulders and dragged her back. Yang Chulu's legs couldn't stop wriggling. She grabbed a handful of dirt from the ground, which sank into her fingernails, showing her despair and helplessness. Woo woo woo. In desperation, she bit Feng Xiangli's finger. Feng Xiangli felt the pain and slapped her again. She was so angry that she picked up a stone from the side of the road and threw it at Yang Chulu's head. Bang! Yang Chulu saw stars from the impact, but she didn't faint. Seeing blood coming out of her head, Yang Chulu's father panicked. He hurriedly scolded, "You damned woman! Are you crazy? Are you going to compensate her if she dies? I'm still counting on her to make money." Feng Xiangli spat. "Who told her to bite me? She dared to bite me. I'll beat her to death. You cheap bastard." When Yang Chulu heard this, she was in complete despair. She still wanted to resist, but she felt her strength draining away. Tears and mud covered her face. She looked up at the sky and seemed to see the shadow of a girl. She saw the fairy's face again, that smiling face. It was a fairy that had not appeared in front of her for a long time. She shouldn't have done this. She didn't want this to happen. There seemed to be something screaming angrily inside her body, and the temperature around her suddenly rose. Feng Xiangli only had time to say, "What's going on?" Flames suddenly engulfed the entire village. A burst of fire erupted from Yang Chulu's body. The ferocious flames seemed capable of devouring everything. In an instant, everything was devoured. One after another, enormous flames burst out from Yang Chulu's body. It was a temperature that seemed to be able to burn through one's heart, but she did not feel any heat. Instead, she felt a trace of tranquility. Amidst the flames, the sky was still filled with that bright and beautiful smiling face. Chapter 667. She. Meng Qingyu jumped off the sofa. There was no particular reason. The main reason was that the temperature suddenly changed. Yang Chulu's face paled, and the temperature around her soared. Meng Qingyu felt like she was in a furnace. It was already autumn, and winter was coming soon. The temperature was dropping. Such a high temperature was abnormal. When she saw Yang Chulu yesterday, she felt the same. Sweat suddenly came out because of the heat, which made people feel very uncomfortable. Boom! Just then, a fire snake jumped out of Yang Chulu's body, scaring Meng Qingyu. Xiao Jin waved her hand, and the surrounding temperature dropped significantly before slowly returning to normal. Yang Chulu, who was sleeping, suddenly opened her eyes and sat up. There was a flash of fire in her eyes. She gasped for air with her mouth open, indicating her panic and helplessness. But when she saw her surroundings, she suddenly relaxed and her tears flowed down. Meng Qingyu looked at Yang Chulu and asked carefully, "Yang Chulu, have you awakened?" Yang Chulu saw Meng Qingyu, and her tears fell even harder. Xiao Jin said, "She's awakened." Flames jumped out. This was an obvious sign. Looking at Yang Chulu's appearance, she must have suffered a lot in the backtrack array. It was only a few hours for them, but for Yang Chulu, it was more than 10 years. The memories in her head forced her to relive those nightmarish years. She didn't know which point had stimulated her to the point of awakening. Yang Chulu glanced at Meng Qingyu with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Then, she heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, she pounced over and hugged Meng Qingyu, crying, "But, hot. Meng Qingyu wanted to show her kindness, but she was scalded and screamed. The sofa where Yang Chulu had been sitting started to smoke. Her body was so hot that it was like a burning furnace. Meng Qingyu was scalded by it. Yang Chulu immediately stopped crying. She was stunned. Xiao Jin said slowly, "She's fire. She just awakened, and her body is hot. If not for her body's resistance to heat, you would have melted." Meng Qingyu. Damn, we're all high-grade magi. Do you have to be so cruel? Yang Chulu was also stunned. She raised her hands and looked at them blankly. There seemed to be a string of energy flowing in her body. She didn't know how to control it, but she subconsciously wanted to force her hands out. In the next moment, 2 clusters of blazing flames appeared between her hands. Meng Qingyu was startled, and then sighed. Amazing. Xiao Jin nodded, seemingly satisfied. High-grade Magus, Hiao has someone to guide her again. I've awakened? Young Chulu was also a little surprised. Looking at the flames in front of her, she felt like she was in a dream. It wasn't easy to escape from that terrifying life, and now she was in another world. A mysterious world. You've awakened. You've awakened. Meng Qingyu was very happy for her. If not for the fact that she was too hot, she wouldn't have dared to touch her. She wanted to hug young Chulu and spin her around. Chapter 668. The fire in young Chulu's hand dissipated, and she looked at Xiao Jin gratefully. Xiao Jin smiled at her. This is all because of your hard work. Young Chulu said. I felt like another 15 years had passed. Her tone was filled with sadness. It was so real, so obvious. I thought I would never experience those nightmares again in my life. Now that I've experienced them again, I actually feel that this is the most painful experience I've ever had. Meng Qingyu was a little distressed. He wanted to reach out, but stopped himself. It's all in the past. Don't worry. Not only are you a high-grade magus now, you can also join the spirit group and enjoy the best benefits with me. You won't encounter those things again in the future. If you can't stand it, just beat them up. Xiao Jin was watching from the side. She couldn't be too violent. Xiao Jin glanced at her, and there seemed to be a faint smile on her lips. Meng Qingyu looked away guiltily. She was different. Yang Chulu had awakened in the backtracking formation, while Meng Qingyu had killed in Jingsong. The two of them were fundamentally different, but Xiao Jin had made it very clear back then. As long as it was Meng Qingyu's choice, she knew the price she had to pay. Yang Chulu gradually became excited. Can I really join the spirit group? Yes. Xiao Jin nodded and called Hiao. I have another high-grade magus here. Do you want her? Of course. Boss, you're too awesome. Hiao was so excited that she almost died. In the past, it was hard enough to find a normal wizard. Now, in the hands of a big shot, high-grade wizards could be found everywhere. Was this the reality of the world? However, she still reminded him, now that two high-grade wizards have joined my side, if another one comes in, it might arouse suspicion. You can let someone else take care of this one. But don't worry, they are all trustworthy and have a good relationship with me. Besides, ordinary people join the spirit group for the sake of social stability. Basically, people who join the spirit group for the first time would not come into contact with many schemes and machinations. Xiao Jin said, I won't care about that. You can distribute them. In any case, she was the one looking after the newly joined Meng Qingyu and Yang Chulu. Xiao Jin didn't care if they were under Hiao or not. Xiao Jian had already contacted them, and Yang Chulu was very happy. Meng Qingyu had already told her about the benefits of joining the spirit group, and the most important was the life. Meng Qingyu added, the benefits of the spirit group are very good, and most of the time, there is nothing to do. If you really don't want to study, you can find an easy job to disguise yourself. Don't worry, you can find the spirit group to arrange it. The spirit group was filled with the spies of the various large families. It was simply too convenient to assign these people an easy job. Yang Chulu nodded happily. Seeing the simple and relaxed smiles on the girls' faces, Xiao Jin raised his eyebrows. For some people, after experiencing the most despairing things in the world, just a little change was enough to let them let go of their worries and be very happy. Compared to Meng Qingyu's awakening, when Yang Chulu awakened, the formation points didn't do anything. This meant that Yang Chulu wouldn't turn dark. She awakened naturally, but she had suffered too much. Chapter 669. Now that Yang Chulu and Meng Qingyu had awakened, ordinary people were no match for them. Meng Qingyu still had to explain most of the rules to her, so Xiao Jin didn't stay for long and quickly returned home. She even managed to finish her meal in time. Today was Mu Jinming's first day of business at home. They were already used to Xiao Jin leaving early and returning late. Seeing that Xiao Jin was back, Xiao Fei waved her hand excitedly and asked the kitchen to prepare another set of cutlery. She asked, Jin, do you have classes tomorrow? Tomorrow was Monday, so Xiao Jin had to go back to school. Xiao Jin looked at her and said calmly, you can go later in the afternoon. What's the matter? Xiao Fei said excitedly, come with me to watch a movie tomorrow. Your dad doesn't have time either. Mu Jinming coughed. I said that I can go with you later. Aren't you happy that I booked the entire theater? Xiao Fei was extremely unwilling. You always run away halfway when you watch a movie with me. Besides, what's the atmosphere if you book the entire theater? I'll go with Jean. Others don't know that I'm Jin's mother. Seeing how young I am, they'll think that I'm Jin's older sister. If I go with you, everyone will know that I'm married. Everyone. Mu Junming took a deep breath. Do you want everyone to think that you're not married? What do you mean by that? Xiao Fei, guess. Mu Junming. Musichu ate quietly. He was already used to the atmosphere of this house. Xiao Jin's lips curled up. He took the rice that the servant served him and said, Okay, I can go with you at noon. After that, I'll go back to school. Okay. Xiao Fei was happy. I haven't watched a movie with you in a long time. This topic was a little sensitive. In the past, Xiao Fei and Xiao Jin lived alone. No matter what they did, Xiao Jin would accompany her. Indeed, it had been a long time since Xiao Fei and Xiao Jin went out to do anything alone. Going to the movies or shopping felt like a long time ago. Everyone knew the reason. Hence, the atmosphere was tense for a moment. Musichu still didn't say anything. Mu Xiangshan clicked his tongue. Xiao Jin took a bite of the food and thought about her and Song Yanqing. She wanted to let everyone know what had happened. So she said softly, I have something to tell you. Mu Xiangshan immediately glanced at her. Mu Qichu, who was eating, also looked at her. Xiao Fei stared at her nervously. What do you want to talk about? Every time she heard Xiao Fei's words, she felt she would beezes. Mu Jinming also looked at her and said directly, You want to buy a house? Everyone else, Xiao Fei pinched Mu's arm. Xiao Jin smiled and said, Not really. It's about Song Yanqing and I. Song Yanqing and I are officially dating. He's my boyfriend now. I'm just informing you about this. The atmosphere was strangely silent. Xiao Fei almost thought she was hearing things. She almost screamed, but she felt that it would ruin the atmosphere, so she held it in. She widened her eyes and looked at Xiao Jin. Mu Jinming lowered his eyes. He seemed to be thinking about something. Amidst the silence, Mu Xiangshan slowly opened his mouth and said, As expected, I guessed right again. As expected of me. Mu Jinming and Xiao Fei. Musichu paused for a moment and then continued eating. Chapter 670. You're dating? Xiao Fei stammered as if he was in a dream. When did this happen? Last night. Didn't Xiao Jin say that he would consider keeping a distance from Lord Song? Xiao Jin said seriously, Fei, I think what you said makes sense, so I told Song Yanqing last night. Song Yanqing also thinks what you said makes sense. In order not to make things difficult for you, he decided to date me. So now, he's my boyfriend. It's normal for me to get along with him in the future. Xiao Fei, she thought of what she said last night. Don't be a green tea. She never expected that Xiao Jin would give her a heavy blow today. Indeed, it was impossible for her to have such a chance because they were dating. Although Mu Jinming didn't know much, he knew that Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin were close. Now that he knew that they were dating, he wasn't too surprised. Mu Xiangshan looked at Xiao Fei at this time. I don't know what you're thinking. Isn't it normal for them to be dating? This day will come sooner or later. You haven't heard what people are saying. It was a tacit agreement. Otherwise, how could the Song family not be anxious and find a fiancé for Song Yanqing? Xiao Fei, how is it normal? The main thing was that Jin had been denying it, and Xiao Fei had believed it. Now that Xiao Fei thought about it carefully, Jin had lied to her. She was heartbroken. Xiao Jin didn't care how shocked she was and continued, I'm just dating Song Yanqing. Nothing else has changed. Fei, you don't have to be so surprised. Xiao Fei, Mu Xiangshan, think positively. She might get married in the future. Do you really want her to be alone for the rest of her life? Xiao Fei, after a few rounds of attacks, Xiao Fei finally gave up. How great was the Lord's song. Although he was 5 years older, now that he thought about it, 5 years older wasn't a big deal. She was so outstanding. What was wrong with dating Xiao Jin? After Mu Xiangshan finished his meal, he wiped his mouth with a napkin and looked at Xiao Jin with satisfaction. Get along well. As expected of you. You can even take down young Master Song. Xiao Fei, Dad, what kind of twisted logic are you spouting? Mu Xiangshan left the table first, followed by Muzichu. The whole family seemed to have accepted Xiao Jin's situation very smoothly, except for Xiao Fei, who was shocked at first. She even seriously reflected on what she had said last night that made the two of them date each other. That's not right. Xiao Jin said that she had told Song Yanqing last night. Xiao Fei realized something. Xiao Jin, why do you always tell young Master Song everything? As a girl, you have to hide your thoughts. Do you understand? Xiao Jin was puzzled. If I don't tell him, how will he know why I changed the way I get along with him? And I'm not like what you think. Fei Fei, you can rest assured now. Xiao Fei, her daughter didn't want to get married, so she started to worry. Now that she was dating Lord Song, she didn't know why she also felt worried. Was she worried that Xiao Jin found a boyfriend too early? But the boyfriend was Lord Song. Xiao Fei felt that she didn't know what was good for her. When Xiao Jin finished eating and went upstairs, Xiao Fei was still thinking. Mu Jinming's attitude was indifferent. She has always been on good terms with Lord Song. It's normal for them to change their relationship now. What are you worried about? The child is still young, and it's too early to get married. Don't think about it. Chapter 671. After pausing for 3 seconds, Xiao Fei suddenly propped up his chin and asked Mu Jinming, "Hey, do you think their children will be as good-looking as fried chicken? How good-looking would they be?" Mu Jinming was speechless. He was making blind guesses. While Muzichu was reading in his room, Muzilian called back. Usually, he would either call Xiao Fei directly or call Muzichu. Muzichu took this opportunity to say, "By the way, Xiao Jin and brother Yanqing are dating." Muzilian was speechless. There was dead silence on the other side of the phone. After a while, a man howled, "Fuck, that's impossible, right?" Muzichu was expressionless. "Are you saying that brother Yanqing is blind or that Xiao Jin is blind?" Muzilian was speechless. He didn't dare to say either of them. Muzilian said, I knew it. There's no such thing as a pure friendship between a man and a woman in this world. I knew it wasn't normal. Xiao Jin, that evil person, was finally taken down by her. That's brother Yanqing we're talking about." Muzichu, I think brother Yanqing confessed. Muzilian, playing hard to get. Humph. Muzichu didn't want to discuss this with him. Muzilian started to complain. "Brother, training every day is so hard. I want to come back." Muzichu, there's still 1 year and 10 months left. Good luck. Muzilian was speechless. Are you human? Are you a demon? Xiao Jin took this opportunity to inform Mu Qiji. However, Mu Qiji rarely contacted her, so she only called to inform him. Mu Qiji seemed a little surprised, but also somewhat within his expectations. He was silent for a moment before he said, "Since it's your choice, then continue to get along with him. Big brother will support you." Xiao Jin, yes? She didn't say that it was just to make it easier for her to get along with Song Yanqing. Xiao Jin then asked, "Qiji, has Howan been looking for you recently?" Although Mu Qiji did not like the mention of that person, Howan was Mu Qiji's ex-girlfriend after all. Hence, Mu Qiji was not so petty. He said calmly, "No, she apologized to me again because of Shang Yiran. I told her that she should apologize to Qi Chu, and we did not contact each other again." Not long after Muzichu's accident, everyone knew that Shang Yiran was his younger brother when Ji Sikai came to apologize. Moreover, Ji Sikai had directly broken one of Shang Yiran's legs. The Mu family could not say anything about this. They also knew Ji Sikai's temper. Even if he beat Shang Yiran to death, it did not seem so strange. Muzichu was also fine, so this matter was temporarily put to rest. However, they heard that Ji Sikai did not get his father's permission when he beat Shang Yiran. These days, Ji Sikai had been arguing with Shang Yiran. Yesterday, when Ji Pingon brought Ji Sikai over, they talked about this matter. It was said that Ji Pingon even helped to defend Ji Sikai. It was his own son who did this, and Xiao Jin was also involved. It was obvious who Ji Pingon was helping. Xiao Jin said, "Oh." After talking to Mu Qiji, she hung up the phone. Xiao Fei came to her again. Although he was curious about Song Yanqing's relationship with her, he did not ask in detail. Instead, he said, "You were not at home yesterday, and Grandpa Ji did not see you. If you have time tomorrow, let's go to Grandpa G's house for a meal first. Chapter 672. Xiao Jin listened to Xiao Fei's suggestion and nodded slowly. Ji Pingon was quite regretful that he didn't see Xiao Jin yesterday. If Xiao Fei could bring him there, he would be very happy. The next day, Xiao Jin and Xiao Fei went to see Ji Pingon, but they didn't expect Ji Sikai to be there. He seemed to have moved in. When Xiao Jin went in and saw him, he was wearing a black shirt and trousers, watering Ji Pingon's plants out of boredom. When he saw Xiao Jin, he raised his eyes and a faint light flashed in his eyes. When Ji Sikai saw Xiao Fei and Xiao Fei, he took the initiative to greet them. Annie Xiao, Xiao Jin. Xiao Fei was surprised to see Ji Sikai here. Sikai, you're here too? Ji Sikai smiled. Things haven't been going well at home recently, so I came to stay with third grandpa for a few days. Xiao Fei understood immediately. It was most likely because of Shang Yiran. Of course, Ji Sikai had broken his leg. Xiao Fei felt that this young man was quite evil. But when she thought of how that bastard Shang Yiran took it out on her child, she felt that Ji Sikai had done a good job. From the perspective of Ji Sikai's father, his son had hit another son so hard. He was probably angry. It was understandable why Ji Sikai didn't want to go back. She nodded and didn't say anything. Xiao Jin walked over. She glanced at Ji Sikai indifferently and didn't say anything. Ji Pingon received the news and came out of the inner room. When he saw Xiao Fei and Xiao Jin, he was very happy. You're here? It's good that you're here. When Ji Pingon saw Xiao Jin, warmth flashed in his eyes. Jin. Xiao Jin nodded and called, Old Master. Ji Pingon nodded. He was very satisfied to be able to see Xiao Jin now. Ji Sikai sneered at the side. He also walked over and sat beside them, casually listening to their conversation. But his gaze would occasionally sweep over Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin treated him as heir and let him look. As Xiao Fei and Ji Pingon chatted, the topic somehow turned to Song Yanqing. Xiao Fei was straightforward and said, Lord Song and Jin are dating now? They are dating? Ji Pingon was a little surprised. When Ji Sikai heard this, the smile on his lips gradually disappeared. Even his expression seemed to have slowly sunk. However, none of them noticed the change in him. Xiao Jin noticed it, but she didn't care. Xiao Jin answered herself, Yesterday. Oh, it's a good thing. Ji Pingon was also very satisfied. Yanqing is good in every way. No one can find fault with her. I heard that she has almost recovered. Good. This was the expression of an elder looking at his future grandson-in-law. Of course, the more he thought about it, the more satisfied he was. Who wouldn't be satisfied with a family like the Song family? Ji Sikai suddenly stood up and said slowly, Third Grandpa, I have something to do. I'll go out first. I'll be back later. Ji Pingon immediately asked, Don't you have lunch? Ji Sikai looked at Xiao Jin and smiled with a slightly gloomy expression. No. After that, he left. His strange attitude was noticed by Ji Pingon. Only Xiao Fei didn't react. She waved her hand enthusiastically. Take care, Sikai. Come to the Mu family when you have time. She was being polite. Ji Sikai, who was about to leave, paused and then said, Okay, Aunt Xiao. Chapter 673. After Ji Sikai left, Xiao Jin and Xiao Fei stayed for dinner. At the dinner table, Xiao Fei was still concerned about the gossip of the Ji family. What's wrong with Sikai's father now? Ji Pingon sighed and then snorted unhappily. He's old and his brain is muddled. He's even worse than us. He doesn't even know who his biological son is. Especially this time, he had targeted Xiao Jin's elder brother, Muzichu. It was said that he had targeted the Mu family as well. If Ji Sikai hadn't discovered it early, who knew how big of a mistake he would have made? Ji Pingon felt that it was a good lesson. When one was young, one had to suffer to remember it for the rest of one's life. Ji Sikai was ruthless, but if it had been Mu Xiangshan from the Mu family, his grandson, who had almost died, he might not have been soft-hearted. Xiao Fei couldn't talk about the secrets of the rich families. Moreover, the one who had died was her son. She just glanced at Xiao Jin and said, It's fine as long as the other things belong to Sikai. He was a father, so he didn't have to take it. Every family had its own difficulties. Ji Pingon sneered. He dares to give it to others? My elder brother isn't dead yet. He valued his grandson, Ji Sikai, the most. What was outside was still outside. Ji Sikai dared to break Shang Iran's leg because he was confident. So what if he was scolded by his father? He could only scold him a little. Xiao Jin wasn't interested in the secrets of the rich families. She thought that the Song family was better. Song Yanqing's elder sister, Song Suyu, didn't have many pursuits. She also helped the family. The two siblings had more than they could spend, so they didn't need to do anything else. Therefore, the relationship between the siblings was very good. Unlike here, where things were complicated. Even the three brothers of the Mu family were simple-minded. Every big clan had its own internal conflicts. After lunch, Xiao Fei and Xiao Jin went to watch a movie in the afternoon. Xiao Jin didn't return to school until class was about to start. He was just in time for her class. After class, Zhongli Peining invited her to have a meal. This time, she actually told her about the array masters of the spirit group. This time, it is said that the array masters found a place in Nanjiang. There are some problems, and many people have already died. The local spirit group in Nanjiang is asking for help from our imperial capital. Xiao Jin paused for a moment. Why are you telling me this? Isn't this your spirit group's problem? Zhongli Peining looked to the side and whispered, because this involves array masters, I know you don't want to join the spirit group, but I want to ask you, will you earn extra money? We can pay you 10 million for this favor. You just need to follow them and take a look. If there are any problems, you can withdraw in advance. Wow, 10 million. Money was not the main thing, but Zhongli Peining would not tell her this for no reason. Some things would naturally be pushed to Xiao Jin. So, this Nanjiang, there was a big problem. Xiao Jin lowered his eyes. He was so calm that no waves could be seen. What's the problem? It's a large-scale mausoleum of array masters. The specifications are very strong. For the time being, we don't know the origin. We can only speculate that it's the mausoleum of an ancient array master. Xiao Jin looked up at her. Zhongli Peining automatically added, we suspect that the ancient array master is an array master from the previous era. We don't know the specific time period, but according to the investigation, the mausoleum has existed for 4,000 years. For 1,000 years, it was almost a shocking number, but it was still a little far from her era. Chapter 674. Seeing that she was thinking, Zhongli Peining continued to ask, so, do you want to go? Xiao Jin looked at her and curled his lips. 10 million. If there's any problem, I can withdraw in advance. This condition is so generous that it's excessive. You're willing to pay this price to invite me, which means that it won't be easy to withdraw after I go, right? Thinking about it, it was obvious that the tomb of an ancient array master was definitely not something that ordinary people could peek into. Even the tomb of Hu Qin that Xiao Jin went to last time couldn't be compared at all. Although it wasn't a big deal for Xiao Jin, this matter was obviously a trap. The only difference was whether he jumped or not. However, they also didn't know that no matter whose tomb it was not worth mentioning to Xiao Jin. The key was what would be in the tomb. Zhongli Peining choked for a moment, knowing that she couldn't hide it from her. She looked a little embarrassed and then a little worried. There's no other way. This ancient array master, we suspect, is related to a curse. After going there, basically all of our people have been cursed. Now, no ordinary spiritual psyche masters are willing to go there, so we're looking for array masters. Only array masters can break this trap. In the end, Zhongli Peining still didn't dare to fool Xiao Jin. After all, whether Xiao Jin went or not was purely up to her free will. She couldn't force her. After hearing this, Xiao Jin directly said, okay. Zhongli Peining, she had already made it clear. Xiao Jin still wanted to go to such an obvious trap, which made Zhongli Peining hesitate for a moment. You agree just like that? Xiao Jin said, since you've already asked me, wouldn't it be unreasonable if I didn't agree? Zhongli Peining, you've always been unreasonable. However, Xiao Jin agreed, which surprised Zhongli Peining. This place was helpless against ancient magic circle masters because there were no magic circle masters around. Normal wizards didn't even know about the existence of magic circle masters, so how could they deal with this ancient tomb? Seeing that Xiao Jin agreed, Zhongli Painting explained the matter more specifically. The mausoleum of an ancient array master was not easy to find. Since ancient times, many array masters had disappeared in the long river of history. There were very few who could leave behind a few words, not to mention a mausoleum with obvious abnormalities. This person must have been an almighty array master when he was alive. There was only one thing that a formation master could leave behind. Formation point. The array point was a good thing. The fact that Xiao Jin had obtained Hu Qin's backtracking array point was the best example. Some array points existed in the world, while some array points were born with array masters. Other than the array masters who were willing to keep them, no one else could take them. The more array points they controlled, the more powerful a formation master would be. This time, the mausoleum of a magic circle master appeared in the southern border. It had been buried for a long time. A group of backpackers entered the southern border mountains to explore and accidentally found this mausoleum. At that time, they didn't know what it was. After entering, they only touched the entrance of the passage. When they came out, something happened. They were cursed. Only a magic circle master could have this kind of ability. Later, they sent people to investigate and confirmed that it was a mausoleum that had existed for 4,000 years. However, what exactly was inside? The wizards were all wiped out before they could enter, so naturally, they didn't dare to touch it. That was why Zhongli Painting came to Xiao Jin. She just thought that Xiao Jin had always been mysterious and wanted to see if she had any ideas. Chapter 675. After Xiao Jin heard this, he asked directly, "What's the reaction to the curse?" Zhongli Painting immediately understood and said directly, "When those people returned home, green moss grew all over their bodies." You know moss, right? It's like ringworm on your body. It's very uncomfortable and itchy. They're still in the hospital now. The doctors can't do anything about it. Their vital signs are very weak. I don't know if they'll all. This was what the curse array point was afraid of. No one knew what would happen in the end. After Xiao Jin heard this, he only said, "It's a very simple backfire curse. Those who shouldn't have entered the mausoleum will be cursed. They'll recover in a month." A month? Zhongli Painting was a little surprised. Is this true? Xiao Jin nodded, but his eyes were a little deep. It's just a simple mistake to enter the mausoleum. It's just a small punishment. If you touch something you shouldn't touch, who knows? Zhongli Painting's face turned pale again. It was obvious that this was only for those who entered the mausoleum by mistake. If they didn't enter the mausoleum by mistake, the curse wouldn't be so simple. Then, is there a way? Zhongli Painting wasn't an array master. She didn't know how dangerous it was inside. Xiao Jin said, "I don't know. I'll only know when I see the mausoleum. I don't want money. I only have one request." Zhongli Painting nodded. "Say it." "In the mausoleum, other than the array point, everything else belongs to you. Even if there are clues to other array points hidden." Zhongli Painting felt suffocated. The reason why the spirit group was so excited to find a 4,000-year-old ancient array master's mausoleum was because of the array point. Now that Xiao Jin pointed out the array point, wouldn't their trip be meaningless? However, what did she dare to say? She looked a little embarrassed. "I actually don't know much about array masters. But you know that the array point is very important, so I have to ask the spirit group first. You can just tell them that it doesn't matter," Xiao Jin said with a perfect smile. "If I don't go, you won't be able to get the array point." It wasn't that Xiao Jin looked down on them, but the mausoleum of a 4,000-year-old ancient array master was definitely not something that could be broken into by modern people. If it was the people behind the Hurley family, there might be some hope. But how would they dare to come to Huaxia? If he came to China, he would be treated as a live target by Xiao Jin. He might even die. Of course, he couldn't rule out the possibility that there was a mysterious person who hadn't shown himself yet. However, if there was a very powerful formation point, Xiao Jin would definitely sense it. She didn't panic at all. Zhongli Painting, the big shot, had a tight grip on the gate of life. Of course, she couldn't say anything, but she had underestimated him in her heart. Now that Xiao Jin had openly expressed her abilities, it meant that she had never been afraid of the spirit group. No wonder she had always been fearless. Zhongli Peining was glad that she didn't start a feud with her from the beginning. She knew that if an array master wanted to kill someone, his methods were much more terrifying than an ordinary wizard. Zhongli Peining said that she wanted to call the spirit group to let them think about it. Xiao Jin didn't stop her. She returned to the dormitory and called Song Yanqing. She asked directly, "Have you had any dreams recently? Or did you foresee anything in Nanjiang?" After all, he was a spiritualist. There was nothing wrong with asking him. Chapter 676. When Song Yanqing heard her question, he paused and said directly, "No. Do you have something related to Nanjiang?" Xiao Jin said, "Well, I'm likely to go to Nanjiang. There is an array master's mausoleum there. There may be array points. Although I'm not interested in cursed array points, since this matter has been pushed to me, I'll go and take a look. Since you didn't sense it, then forget it." This meant that this matter had nothing to do with Song Yanqing. Nanjiang? Nanjiang is very far. Nanjiang had always been a mysterious place in the hearts of the Chinese people. Nanjiang was mostly mountainous. In this land, there were many mysterious ethnic groups, and many mysterious legends were passed down. Voodoo, witchcraft, and because it was mostly mountainous, there were many large mausoleums in Nanjiang. There was even no lack of emperors' mausoleums. There was a saying in Nanjiang, "If you walk in the wild, you may step on a graveyard." With such a legend, it added a gloomy color to the southern border. Song Yanqing frowned slightly. "Do you need me to go with you?" Xiao Jin said, "That's not necessary. You can do your own things in the capital. If you don't sense it, it means that this matter has nothing to do with you. Moreover, I'm going with the array master of the spirit group. It's not appropriate for you to show up." Song Yanqing thought of the current situation of the spirit group and raised his eyebrows. "Why would the array master of the spirit group go with you?" Xiao Jin couldn't help but laugh. "I don't quite understand their thoughts. Zhongli Peining found me and said that she would give me 10 million to ask me to help. There are so many array masters in the spirit group, so it's impossible for her to find a wild array master like me for no reason. I'm inclined to think that there's a big problem with this mausoleum. Someone wants to dig a hole for me to suffer. Even if I don't suffer, they want to see how strong I am." The Feng family had fallen, but there were still several families behind the spirit group. There were still a bunch of array masters behind them who hadn't shown up, but it didn't mean that the Feng family's ancestor was the strongest. Song Yanqing sighed. Why? In the end, she had no choice but to jump into the pit herself by always finding fault with Xiao Jin. He said softly, "Since you're going, then be careful. If there's anything, you must give me a call." He still couldn't let go of the dream he had. Xiao Jin had fainted in a cave. When did that happen? Was he in great danger? However, since he didn't sense the southern border, it meant that this matter wasn't in the southern border. His heart still felt a lot better. Xiao Jin replied, "Okay." She had to wait for Zhongli Peining and the others to arrange the time. Probably because of the urgency of the situation, Zhongli Peining told her the next day that the array master of the spirit group had agreed, but they had to set off now. Xiao Jin definitely needed an excuse to apply for leave, but they directly went through the official channels and gave Xiao Jin a legitimate reason to leave, so the school did not ask. As for Xiao Fei, it was better not to tell them, so as not to make Xiao Fei worry. Xiao Jin finally saw another legendary spirit group, which was a team composed of array masters. Among them, she saw an acquaintance. The other party was very short, and his pupils turned out to be a rare double pupil. When he looked at people, he had a particularly mysterious feeling. Although he was not extraordinary, his eyes were enough to attract people's attention. Xiao Jin had sensed the other party when she was beside Ji Sikai. The other party must know Xiao Jin's identity, but he didn't know that Xiao Jin knew him. So when he saw Xiao Jin, the short man had no expression on his face. Chapter 677. In addition to him, there were 3 other men and 1 woman. Including Xiao Jin, there were only 6 array masters. This might not be all the array masters of the spirit group, but it also showed that there were very few array masters. Moreover, not every array master had the ability to challenge an ancient array master's tomb. The three men were all different in appearance, and there was a big difference in their temperaments. One of them even looked at Xiao Jin and was amazed by her. They were all dressed very luxuriously, and it looked like they were usually flattered. After all, they were array masters, and some of their abilities were enough for him to live a good life. The last girl was biting on a lollipop. She looked like she was only 15 or 16 years old, and she looked obedient and pure. She was wearing a rather exaggerated lowly princess dress. Coupled with her ability to look like a lowly, she looked like a cosplay enthusiast. She looked at Xiao Jin with a smile, and when she saw Xiao Jin, she took the initiative to greet her. "Hello, Sister Xiao Jin. My name is Ji Mingming." Xiao Jin raised her eyebrows slightly. "Hello, Ji Mingming." Because of her cute appearance, even her name was so suitable. Of the other four, three ignored Xiao Jin, although they were also a little shocked by Xiao Jin's appearance. However, they had seen all kinds of beautiful women, and their hearts were calm. Because Xiao Jin was not a member of the spirit group, they did not find her pleasing to the eye. The only exception was the boy whose eyes lit up when he saw Xiao Jin. He greeted Ji Mingming enthusiastically. "Hello, my name is Zhao Yuandan." Xiao Jin. "Hello." This name was quite festive. Zhao Yuandan scratched his head. "Is my name a little strange? When I was young, I was born on New Year's Day, and my mother gave me this name for convenience. I can't not recognize my parents, so I just changed my name, right?" Xiao Jin. "That makes sense." Zhao Yuandan laughed. He looked like an ordinary sunny boy, and other than Ji Mingming, he was probably the lightest of the four men. The other three snorted coldly to varying degrees. They skipped the greeting step and waited to board the plane. There weren't many people flying to Nanjing. The six of them occupied the first-class cabin, which was just right for a conversation. Ji Mingming simply sat with Xiao Jin and asked her with a smile, "Sister Xiao Jin, I heard that you want the array point inside?" Xiao Jin looked down at her.
Yes.
The short man sitting opposite her let out a cold snort. Ji Mingming widened her eyes, looking curious and cute. "Sister Xiao Jin, are you so sure that there are array points inside?" Xiao Jin. "If not, I'll take 10 million. Neither side was at a disadvantage. Ji Mingming, Zhao Yuandan, on the other hand, had a lively personality. He immediately asked the three of them, "Is there any news from that side? Or did they not break in?" One of them seemed to reluctantly respond to Zhao Yuandan's question. He said in a muffled voice, "If there's no news, it means that they haven't broken in yet. The mausoleum of an ancient array master is not so easy to break in." Zhao Yuandan smacked his lips. "An array master who is good at curses is not easy to deal with. I'm really afraid that if I get infected with some strange curse, it will be GG when I come back." The man who answered sneered. "What are you afraid of? We have 10 million to hire foreign aid. They said that without her, we can't get the array point. What else can we do? We can only wait for the master to perform." Chapter 678. It was obvious who he was referring to, judging from the tone of his words. Zhao Yuandan glanced at Xiao Jin awkwardly. Xiao Jin didn't care at all. He didn't even blink his eyes. Looking at her calm appearance, Ji Mingming glanced at her, then glanced at the person who spoke. She burst into laughter. "Lu Run, don't be so sarcastic. Look at him. He has the demeanor of a great god. You are just like a henchman next to him." Lu Ren's face stiffened. He sneered and didn't speak. Zhao Yuandan whispered to Xiao Jin again, "He is like this. Don't mind him." Xiao Jin probably understood. Probably these people knew that she wanted to take the array points and were not convinced. But why did they agree? She curled her lips, nodded, and didn't speak. Xiao Jin was a little famous in the capital, but it was not obvious. The Feng family's matter was strange, but not many people would directly suspect Xiao Jin. After all, a family was finished. Who knew what was going on? They were more inclined to believe that a few array masters joined forces to target the Feng family. In addition, the Feng family itself was seeking death, so it was miserable to this point. As for Xiao Jin, he was just a somewhat strange array master. This time, The spirit group invited her to be foreign aid. They might have the intention to win her over, but these array masters who had been in the organization were not convinced. The journey to Nanjiang was very long. The plane flew for 3 hours before arriving at this legendary land. Nanjiang City still had a main city. It was surrounded by mountains. The city center was surrounded in the middle of the mountain range. It could be said to be a naturally sealed place. It was just that the country did not believe in ghosts and gods now. The development here was very good. The modern metropolis of Nanjiang had long lost the mysterious taste of the past, perhaps only in those deep mountains, and seeing those ancient villages that were still sealed in the mountains could one understand the mysterious legends at that time. The plane landed, and it began to drizzle in Nanjiang City. A continuous chill was transmitted into people's bones along with the wet and cold air. It was so cold that people couldn't open their bodies. Now that it was October, the weather was getting colder. The spirit team arranged a hotel for them to stay in. When they arrived, only Ji Mingming, Zhao Yuandan, and Xiao Jin stayed in the hotel. The other 3 went directly to the local spirit team to find out about the situation. Since Ji Mingming and Zhao Yuandan were both there, Xiao Jin did not ask further. She didn't need to ask anything. She would naturally know when he returned. Xiao Jin was in the room, lying on the sofa and calling Song Yanqing leisurely. "I've arrived at Nanjiang City." The girl's obedient report came into his ears, and it seemed to make his tiredness of the day dissipate. Song Yanqing outlined his gentle eyebrows. "How is it over there?" Xiao Jin looked out of the window. "It's pretty good. It's raining here. What about the capital?" Song Yanqing, "It's sunny in the capital. You should wear more clothes. Don't catch a cold." Xiao Jin said, "I won't catch a cold." Her physical fitness was good, and she would never have such a small illness. Song Yanqing paused for a moment and laughed. "I forgot. He was not sick now, let alone a person like Xiao Jin." Song Yanqing glanced at the document in his hand and pushed it away. He stood up and looked out of the window with deep eyes. He said in a low and gentle voice, "When you come back, I will find a chance to formally visit Uncle Mu and Aunt Xiao." Chapter 679. He used to visit the Mu family and hang out with his friends. Now it was different. Xiao Jin was already his girlfriend, so he had to pay her a visit. Otherwise, others would think that he didn't care about Xiao Jin and didn't even visit her parents. Xiao Jin didn't care. "Okay, they know it now anyway." Song Yanqing said, "Well, okay. You just got off the plane. Have a good rest. When are you going to take action?" Xiao Jin said, "Maybe tomorrow." They went to ask the local Lingji group about the information they have. Song Yanqing asked, "Do you feel anything unusual now?" Xiao Jin said, "No, it's too far away." She thought for a moment, looked out of the window, and continued, "Nanjiang is different from other places. There are many unusual situations here." She even felt the fluctuations of several array points. Those array points were big and small, strong and weak, but they were not very attractive to her now. And this was only in the city of Nanjiang. She had never felt so many array point fluctuations in other cities. Nanjiang was an extraordinary city. Song Yanqing paused and lowered his eyes. "Be careful." Xiao Jin said, "I will." At this time, the doorbell rang. Xiao Jin said goodbye to Song Yanqing and hung up the phone. He opened the door and saw Ji Mingming outside. She was still biting her lollipop and looking cute. "Sister Xiao Jin, they are back. We can go to Zhao Yuandan's room to share the information." Of course, the information was about the mausoleum of the ancient array masters. Xiao Jin nodded and followed Ji Mingming. They entered Zhao Yuandan's room. They had already begun to discuss in the room. The speaker was one of the people who disliked Xiao Jin, Lu Ren. Seeing Ji Mingming come in with Xiao Jin, he didn't say anything. He just said, "If there are no objections, we will take action tonight." Zhao Yuandan said, "Xiao Jin is here. Shall we tell her about the situation first?" Lu Ren sneered. "Does the great master need to know the situation? It's so simple." The Lingji group went in and was wiped out. Everyone is in the hospital now. Ji Mingming took out her lollipop and looked a little annoyed. "Why do you all like to take action at night?" Zhao Yuandan said, "It's to hide at night." Since there was no one around, They wouldn't cause too much of a commotion when they used the array formation, so it wouldn't attract the attention of others. Xiao Jin did not care whether they talked about the situation at the scene or not. She just glanced at Lu Run meaningfully and then turned around indifferently. Okay, let's go now. Everyone, they didn't expect Xiao Jin to be so straightforward. The short man spoke for the first time. His voice was a little hoarse. We have to leave now. It's a long way. They have a car to pick them up, but it will be at least midnight when we get there. We have to make some preparations. If you are hungry, bring some food. Ji Mingming said, but I don't know the situation yet. I just want to call Sister Xiao Jin. Zhao Yuandan said in a friendly manner. It's okay. I will tell you on the car. It's just two very simple pieces of news. We can't know the rest even if we want to. There was too little information about the mausoleum. Except that the array master might be a curse array master, there was no other information. Xiao Jin walked in front. When Lu Ran was about to leave, the short man suddenly said, Don't target her. She is more evil than the Feng family. Chapter 680. Lu Ran immediately turned back to look at him, somewhat puzzled. What do you mean? Array masters like them thought highly of themselves. Usually, even if there were any news channels, they would only pay attention to themselves. They had only heard of Xiao Jin's appearance in the capital by chance. They didn't know the specific situation. But the Feng family had been in such a big mess recently that everyone knew about it. Firstly, they didn't dare to imagine that the Feng family would do things to such an extent. Secondly, Xiao Jin was even more evil than the Feng family. Then, the short man was called Lu Xian. At this time, he just had a sullen face. Not knowing is the most dangerous thing. He left this inexplicable sentence and walked forward first. Lu Ran was even more puzzled. At this moment, he didn't finish. He suddenly got angry and pulled Zhao Yuandan. What do you think he means? Zhao Yuandan pointed to Xiao Jin, who hadn't gone too far ahead, and whispered, At least don't talk about it in front of her. She was still here. If she remembered it in her heart, it would be awkward. Everyone met for the first time. They didn't know each other's temperament. Who knew if the other party was big or small? It was not a wise move to make enemies with an array master. Lu Ran also saw that he was from the spirit group. There were several people in the spirit group. Xiao Jin was not from the spirit group. It was many against one, so he didn't think much of Xiao Jin. Now that Lu Xian reminded him and Zhao Yuandan didn't say anything, Lu Ran shut up resentfully. The spirit group's price was not low. They even gave the array point to the other party. He wanted to see how capable this Xiao Jin was. When they went downstairs, there was already a car waiting below the hotel. The place they were going to was very far. It was in the mountains outside Nanjiang City. The road was very bad. But because of the area of Nanjiang, there were many teams that liked to explore, so there were other roads. It was just too far. It was said that it would take 5 or 6 hours from here to the destination. Everyone was not familiar with each other. A large bus loaded everyone. Xiao Jin didn't like to talk. He just sat in his seat and focused on looking at his phone. Ji Mingming and Zhao Yuandan were seizing the time to catch up on sleep. After all, it would be the wee hours of the morning when they arrived there. If they were not in good spirits, it would not be a good sign for them. If they encountered danger, they would not be able to react in time. Apart from the driver, only Lu Xian and another array formation master were awake. Occasionally, Xiao Jin would meet the eyes of the remaining person. The other person would stare at her, sizing her up slightly, as if he was trying to figure something out. He didn't know how long the car had been driving. 2 hours later, they entered the mountainous area. Along the way, there were rugged paths. Looking around, it was all thick and boundless mountains. In this dark night, it was like a monster that chose people to devour. No one knew when it would open its mouth and swallow people. To dare to appear in these places in the middle of the night, one must have some courage. At about 2:00 in the morning, the car slowly came to a stop. The driver's voice could be heard. Everyone, we're here. This sound instantly woke up the few array masters who were still in a daze. Although everyone wanted to rest, they were still alert. They would wake up very quickly if they encountered any noise. Everyone followed the sound and looked outside. They had already arrived at the foot of a mountain. In front of them was a jungle. Occasionally, they could even hear the sound of flowing water. At this point, the road was completely cut off. In front of them was a rugged mountain range. For the time being, they didn't have the ability to directly open up a path here. Therefore, they had to get out of the car and start walking. Chapter 681. Everyone got out of the car. The driver was waiting for them here. He would only wait until the morning. If not, he would go back in the morning. The driver who dared to come here was definitely not an ordinary person. Ji Mingming got out of the car and looked at the area in front of her. She muttered, "It looks very dangerous." There was no light in this mountain, and it was completely hidden in the darkness. Lu Xian took out a flashlight. When he turned on the light did not shine far, as if it was swallowed directly. They could only see an endless dense forest and the occasional squeak of small animals. They could vaguely see a road that seemed to have been walked by someone. Zhao Yuandan took out his phone and glanced at the map. "It's just in front. It will take about half an hour to reach the place. I have already drawn the map." Exploration teams often appeared here, so the map was ready-made. Everyone nodded and walked along the only road. They were all array masters, and their courage was not ordinary. Even the youngest Ji Mingming was not afraid in such an environment. The southern borders mountains were extremely famous. The mountain range here was continuous, and the peaks overlapped. If you went over one mountain after another, it would be surrounded by tall and dense forests. If you couldn't find a way out, then this place would definitely be a nightmare. The country had developed many mountains in recent years, but it was less than 1/10 of them. There were still many things hidden inside, waiting for humans to explore. Xiao Jin and the rest stepped into one of the mountain ranges. After entering, they were surrounded by tall trees, and it was almost impossible to see the path. Xiao Jin walked at the front. Lu Xian's flashlight naturally could not shine on her all the time. The light flickered, but Xiao Jin walked very fast, as if she was not worried that she would get lost. Kacha, Kacha. Only the footsteps of these few people could be heard in the forest. When it was quiet, it was a little scary. Ji Mingming looked at Xiao Jin's back in front of her with her long hair fluttering in the wind. Although she knew that he was full of a mortal aura, in the dark, Xiao Jin's back was the most frightening. She could not help but say, "How did those exploration teams find such a remote place?" "I already said that it was an exploration team." Zhao Yuandin smiled and said, "They must have walked around and found something amazing. There have always been many legends in Nanjiang, and it was the habitat of many emperors. It's not strange for an ancient array master's tomb to appear. It's just that this kind of array master's tomb usually needs some kind of opportunity to enter. I heard that these people entered by accident, even they did not investigate the real situation. Because the array masters of the Earth Spirit Group were not good at these things. No matter how they looked at it, they could not see any problems. Only then did he ask for help from his superiors. Milo. He hadn't heard much about what happened last time. Most of the people who died were from the Spirit Group. They did not inform the array masters. Lu Ren snorted and said, "I heard that they found the array points, but they went for wool and came home shorn. They died and were injured. There were array points, but they did not live to take them." Chapter 682. They all knew very well that with such a large number of casualties, there was definitely an array point inside. Unfortunately, there was no news of what the array point was. Milo, the only one who knew the news, was now missing. No one knew if he was the one who took the array point. Because of this, the Feng family had to bear a lot of responsibility. In the end, the Feng family was also gone. The spirit team had not even finished settling the score. "Hey." Lu Xian's face darkened. "Don't talk. There's a sound." Suddenly, they heard a strange sound. When they looked around, they found that they were still in the forest. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Xiao Jin was in front. Her light voice came. "A small animal." Everyone, seeing that she was still walking smoothly, everyone had to follow. Lu Ren snorted coldly. "Why are you still pretending? Can't we see it?" Ji Mingming said. Lu Xian heard it. You didn't. Your ears are not very good. Lu Run was angry. You didn't hear it either. Ji Mingming smiled. I didn't hear it. I didn't say anything. Lu Ren, everyone here was an array master. Everyone hid their abilities, but their general strength was about the same, so no one was convinced. Ji Mingming was the youngest, but she did not necessarily call others brother or uncle. Everyone had been walking for more than 20 minutes. Logically speaking, they should have arrived. However, Xiao Jian suddenly stopped and said very softly, "We're here." Zhao Yuandan looked at his phone. The map shows that there are still a few minutes left. Although there was no signal here, they could directly estimate the distance. It did not match the place mentioned by the expedition team. Xiao Jin said, "It's here." They didn't go to the opposite door. Everyone's face was a little solemn. Xiao Jin could actually say that they did not go to the opposite door directly. It meant that she had seen something. However, they did not see anything. Everyone looked at each other and began to use their own skills. They surrounded the ground and began to set up arrays. Their method of setting up arrays was very different from Xiao Jin's. They needed to connect the array points in various places around them, which was commonly known as drawing. Only array masters like them could see this thing. However, after drawing the array points, there was still nothing in front of them. They did not see anything. Everyone immediately saw the problem. They were at the end of a canyon in a mountain range. 2 more steps, and they would be out of the forest. There was even a small waterfall in front of them. The waterfall flowed down the mountain rocks and accumulated in the pool in front of him. There were rocks on both sides, and there seemed to be traces of animals. Obviously, this place was a natural water spot. This kind of place wasn't rare in the southern border mountain range. However, Xiao Jin walked to the side of the pool and looked down. His eyes were calm as he said, "The entrance is below." Lu Xian stared at her with a solemn expression, but he quickly shifted his gaze to the bottom of the pool. Other than the splashes from the waterfall, there was nothing unusual on the surface of the pool. It was a very normal mountain spring. Ji Mingming touched her chin and asked hesitantly, "Should we go into the water?" She didn't really want to, mainly because they couldn't see anything. Now, they were all listening to Xiao Jin. That was what she thought, but someone had said it out loud. Lu Ran was not convinced. "If you say it's below, then it's below. We didn't see anything wrong. Why should we listen to you?" After he said this, Xiao Jin turned to look at him with a faint smile. Chapter 683. Being stared at by those calm and deep eyes, Lu Ren immediately swallowed. His heart throbbed inexplicably. "I'm just saying. It's up to you whether you want to go down or not." She reached out and pinched him. Then, she turned around and jumped into the pool without hesitation. With a splash, a living person jumped directly and quickly went down. The waterfall splashed quickly. In less than 2 seconds, there was no trace of Xiao Jin in the pool. Everyone, Zhao Yuandan glanced at everyone and said awkwardly, "She has already jumped. Let's jump." Zhao Yuandan believed that the person who spent 10 million yuan to find had a reason. He didn't feel any danger. He set up a simple waterproof array on himself, took 2 steps forward, and jumped. Ji Mingming only hesitated for a moment before jumping. 3 of the 6 people jumped. The remaining 3 looked at each other. Lu Xian and the array master jumped without hesitation. Lu Ren, what the fuck? He didn't even ask anything and just jumped. It was because they didn't see any problem that they were worried that Xiao Jin was tricking them. But now that everyone had jumped, he was the only one left on the shore. He hesitated for a moment and suddenly heard a strange sound behind him. In an instant, he felt his scalp tingle and his hair stand on end. It was the intuition of an array master. Lu Ren almost didn't think and jumped forward into the pool. Splash! The camera turned back. The light had completely dimmed. They could only see something white on the tree trunk of the dense forest beside the pool. It circled around the tree trunk and quickly shrank back. The pool water was very cold. It wasn't a big problem for Xiao Jin. Her body seemed to be separated by a layer of transparent film. The water couldn't get close to her body, so she could breathe freely underwater. This was a pool formed by a waterfall over the years. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be very deep. However, Xiaojin jumped in and fell at least 10 meters. In front of her, there was still cold water. The figures above were also falling in one after another. Xiaojin blinked and finally saw a faint light coming from below. It was the light of the array. They had arrived at their destination. This was just an entrance. He would only know what it was when he got closer. Xiaojin fell the fastest and soon reached the bottom of the pool. It was still surrounded by stone walls, and the bottom of the pool was just a piece of silt. However, there was a lump of silt in the middle that was especially high, as if something was floating. Xiaojin directly went over, and with a slight movement of his finger, a lump of sludge dispersed, revealing a copper ring underneath. It was like the doorknob of a large door. Whatever it was connected to, one would know with a pull. The fluctuations of the array formation came from above. Of course, it was not something that could be pulled open by force. Furthermore, the copper ring was located at the bottom of the pool. Once it was pulled open, all the water in the pool would instantly flow in. However, it was precisely because of the array formation that the copper ring was not necessarily as simple as it appeared on the surface. Xiaojin looked at it from the side. Zhao Yuandan and the rest, who had landed behind, also saw the copper ring. Although they couldn't speak, they could still move freely. After Lu Ren landed, he reached out to pull the copper ring. Xiaojin didn't stop him. The moment Lu Ren touched the copper ring, he seemed to be stabbed by something and instantly retracted his hand. When he looked again, the copper ring in front of him had turned into a human mouth. The mouth was wide open, and a row of sharp teeth could be seen clearly. Lu Ren, CTM? Chapter 684. He was wondering why this group of beasts didn't move after coming down. If Lu Ren had been a moment slower, he would have pulled the copper ring away. Who knew if this mouth would have bitten off his hand? Ji Mingming glanced at Lu Ren and rolled her eyes. They were all array masters. She didn't know why Lu Ren's vigilance was so low. They were all swimming in the water and couldn't talk to each other. Seeing that the copper ring in front of them had turned into a human mouth, everyone subconsciously scattered far away. Only Xiaojin didn't move. The moment the mouth came out, she pushed the mud away even more. A woman's gray face suddenly appeared at the bottom of the pool. She had died here for many years. Her face had been soaked in mud until it was extremely pale, but her original appearance could still be vaguely seen. Her mouth was open, and her sharp teeth and eyes were staring. All of this showed how terrifying she was. Ordinary people would probably have nightmares for 3 to 5 years after seeing her. Especially when Xiaojin pushed her away, the woman's eyes at the bottom of the pool moved. Her gloomy eyes glanced directly at Xiaojin. Ji Mingming, Zhao Yuandan. The two of them were so scared that they almost screamed. Even for array masters, it was rare to see such a terrifying scene. Only Lucien and the other array master, Tang Yiming, were very calm. Lu Ren was so scared that he swam as far away as he could. Array masters were suitable for fighting on land. The water was pitch black, and now they saw something that only appeared in horror movies. This was too much of a test of their endurance. Xiaojin didn't change at all. She even directly waved her hand to slap the woman's cheek. The woman's expression suddenly became incredulous, but there was nothing she could do. Xiaojin's palm didn't hit her cheek, because she turned into a cloud of smoke and blended into the soil, as if she had disappeared naturally. Underneath her head was a copper ring that looked exactly the same as her head. This was the real entrance. Only Xiaojin didn't take this seriously. If it were other array masters, they would probably be bitten until they started to doubt their life. Xiaojin pulled open the entrance of the copper ring without hesitation. Bang! The movement in the water should have been very small, but everyone seemed to hear a drumbeat in their hearts. Dong dong dong. It was very shocking. As the copper ring was pulled open, a glaring light leaked out. The surrounding caves, cliffs, ponds, and mud all began to sink down along with the copper rings. It was as if a vacuum had appeared below. At that moment, everyone realized that their bodies were no longer under their control, and they were sliding down. It was not that there was a door under the copper ring, but the moment the copper ring was pulled, the surrounding scenery started to change. They continued to fall uncontrollably, and the water became thinner. Splash! The sound of water exploding suddenly came into contact with the air, and everything became clear. The few array formation masters were at a loss as they could not stop their bodies from falling. Xiao Jin's body was light as a feather. As he fell, he saw the things around him explode as though they had turned into starlight. Amidst the sparkling starlight, they looked like memory fragments that floated in midair. They mixed with the soil and were not obvious at all. Xiao Jin reached out and grabbed a piece of debris. Then, she felt a strong attractive force. Even she couldn't control it as it pulled her into some place. With a boom in front of her, everything returned to silence. Chapter 685. When she woke up, drops of water were falling on her cheeks. A drop of water hit her eyelashes. She opened her eyes and saw that she was lying in a cave. Backtracking array? She frowned and looked down. Her clothes had changed. She was only wearing a thin white dress. She was surrounded by a cave, dripping with water. It was dark and damp. Ji Mingming and the others were gone, but she felt that nothing had happened to them. To be able to pull her array, this array point was definitely not simple. There was also an array master. Although the situation in front of her was a little out of control, she still calmly turned over and sat up. Drip. There was only a very quiet dripping sound around. There was a glimmer of light in front of her, like an exit. She stood up and wanted to walk along the light, but found that she couldn't walk out. Was she trapped? There shouldn't be an array in this world that could trap her. She felt for a moment, and her face suddenly changed. She was the one who had set up this formation. Was she trapped in the array she set up? But why was that? She looked at the surrounding stone walls. The light in the cave was not as dim as before. With the help of the light, she saw some patterns engraved on the stone walls. There were some simple drawings of people kneeling and worshipping something. When she looked forward, she found that it was a person. This figure was only a back view. Compared to the simple kneeling human in the painting, this person's lines were exaggerated to the point of being very tall. He was wearing a long robe. Only this figure, although thin, had a kind of aura that made people want to prostrate themselves in worship. She looked at the engraved figure faintly and felt a familiar feeling from it. She knew this person, and he wasn't from this era, but from 10,000 years ago. Suddenly, she felt a cold breath on her cheek, as if someone was touching her cheek. Her mind moved, but she didn't feel any dangerous aura. A very familiar voice sounded, with a gentle longing and a distant sigh. "Are you cold? Song Yanqing?" She wanted to turn her head, but she didn't see anything. The cave was empty, and there was no Song Yanqing's figure. The touch on her cheek seemed to have disappeared, but there was still a lingering feeling of dependence. "Song Yanqing?" She spoke, and her voice echoed in the cave. She knew that this was not real, but she felt that Song Yanqing was here. Which Song Yanqing was it? She frowned and suddenly realized that her amnesia was not as simple as it seemed. She was the one who had set up the array. So why did she send Song Yanqing inside the array? At this moment, thousands of miles away in the imperial capital, a man who had been resting on his bed suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils were as black as ink, but at this moment, his eyes were clear and bright, as if he hadn't woken up at all. Song Yanqing? That voice belonged to Xiao Jin. He didn't know where it came from, but he heard a series of echoes. He frowned and sat up in his black pajamas. He found that the black gas in the corners of the room had already reached the point where it was corroding the entire room. When he listened carefully, there seemed to be the whispers of demons. Just a little bit more, and it would devour the bed where Song Yanqing was lying. Seeing that he had woken up, the black aura instantly rolled and disappeared. He only stared at the slowly disappearing black aura, without the slightest bit of panic. Borrowing the hazy light outside the window, his gentle and handsome side profile added a trace of coldness. Chapter 686. He got up and put on a coat. Outside, he could hear Dan's steady breathing. A faint light flashed through his black eyes. If there was any movement, Dan would sense it. With that thought, he closed his eyes and thought about Xiao Jin's direction. He couldn't think about Xiao Jin directly. That way, he wouldn't be able to determine her location. He could use another method. After about a minute, Song Yanqing's face paled for a moment. In the next second, the space around him twisted. When he opened his eyes, a gust of cold wind hit him. It was so cold that it made him shiver. He coughed heavily. He was surrounded by a dense forest, but there was a waterfall in front of him. A bright moon hung in the sky. The moon was dim and cold, reflecting Song Yanqing's pale face. He clenched his fists, covered his mouth, and coughed heavily. He felt his strength drain away, and he felt a little dizzy. It wasn't that his body was too weak, but that he had forcefully teleported from the capital to here. He had used the power of a spiritual master of speech. His current strength wasn't enough to teleport such a long distance, so his body couldn't withstand it. But he still came, because he heard Xiao Jin calling him. Looking at the scene in front of him, he suddenly thought of the scene in his dream. He frowned. He didn't know if Xiao Jin had encountered some problem. The surroundings were quiet. Xiao Jin had already walked along the stone wall and finished looking at the simple murals. It seemed to be a scene of a sacrifice. Unfortunately, other than the man in the picture, the rest of the pictures didn't express much. The only difference was that Xiao Jin felt that the murals and array were from 10,000 years ago. There was no trace of the so-called ancient array master from 4,000 years ago. Could it be that their survey was wrong? She stared at the murals for a while and suddenly felt that something was wrong. The tall figure was still flickering with a dim light, and it didn't seem to be from the mural itself. Xiao Jin stretched out her hand to dig at the wall. The seemingly hard stone wall seemed to have been marked by someone long ago. When Xiao Jin's hand touched it, she felt some marks. Her fingertips hung, and a piece of broken stone fell down. Then, a small blue stone fell out of it. It was a small blue stone. It was very ordinary and had a little bit of light, but it didn't have the texture of a gem. The moment she held the stone, the deep and cold voice rang in her ears again. "Do you like it? This is for you." She looked around to make sure she hadn't heard wrong. It was indeed Song Yanqing's voice. However, she also knew that it was impossible for Song Yanqing to appear here, nor did he give her anything like this. She thought of the memories she had lost, and her eyes suddenly became deep. Could the things she had forgotten be related to Song Yanqing? But wasn't Song Yanqing a modern person? How could he be related to her from 10,000 years ago? Looking at the back figure with a heavy gaze, Xiao Jin realized that she still couldn't remember anything. The only thing she could remember was that this voice was too familiar to her. It was Song Yanqing's voice. It was as if he had always been by her side. It was rare for her to frown. She realized that the memories she had lost might be more important than she thought. She didn't feel any danger. She only saw a cloud of fog. This cloud of fog was related to Song Yanqing. Chapter 687. The first time she saw Song Yanqing, she saw it on him. He had the ability of a spiritual master of speech and was entangled by the Rakshasa realm. All these signs indicated that he was not an ordinary person, but she did not see any connection between him and the old era. There was another possibility. The voice she imagined might be someone else's voice. It was only because she was too familiar with Song Yanqing that she recognized it as Song Yanqing's voice. There was this possibility, but it was not big. She pinched the stone and was still in deep thought. The scene in front of her changed instantly. She heard Lu Ren's terrified voice. "What do you mean? You want to kill us?" She narrowed her eyes for a moment and stood up in an instant. The scene around her had changed drastically. She was in an underground palace. The Lu Ren in front of her had a sense of fear and hatred towards her. Ji Mingming was lying in the distance. The others were also looking at her with shocked eyes. Xiao Jin looked at her hand and looked at Lu Ren again. She only saw a group of array formations coming towards her, flickering with raging flames. She waved her hand and blocked it. Her eyes were cold. "Who did you say wanted to kill you?" Lu Ren gritted his teeth. "You want to kill us?" Stop pretending. You actually attacked us behind our backs. Xiao Jin instantly understood some problems. She only said, I wasn't here just now. No matter what happened, what you saw just now was an illusion. She only stretched out her hand and pulled. The red silk threads covered the sky and covered the earth, surrounding the entire underground palace tightly. She glanced around. She could only see that this was a grand hall, but it was all made of stone. There were few shadows of buildings from the later era. Xiao Jin roughly understood. This underground palace was the residence of the real 4,000 years old ancient array masters. You think it's an illusion just because you say so? Lu Xindu's face was dark. You attacked Ji Mingming directly just now? Xiao Jin glanced at them. If I want to attack you, you won't be able to leave this place alive. Among the red threads, there were already strange light spots flashing and fleeing. Xiao Jin looked at the combined formation and only said in a low voice, It's just the lowest level of camouflage. You can't even see through this. You've really impressed me. The illusion was fake. It was impossible for her to have her strength. If she wanted to kill this group of people, she could do it silently. Why would she need to go through so much trouble? Lu Run, you. His face was flushed red. Xiao Jin couldn't be bothered with them. He walked straight to the deepest part of the hall. The hall was very empty, and the walls were made of stone. There were stone pillars at the four corners, and there was kerosene at the top of the stone pillars, as if it was originally burning with flames. It was probably used for lighting. However, after a few thousand years, it had long dried up into a pitch-black lump. In the deepest part of the hall, there was a high platform. On the high platform, there was a stone coffin. The stone coffin hadn't decayed or weathered for thousands of years, and it was completely sealed. It was as if the coffin's mouth and body were directly cast. There wasn't a single gap, and no one could find a way to open it. However, Xiao Jin felt that the array point was inside. Lu Ran and the others had just been attacked by the fake Xiao Jin and were now frightened. However, when they saw Xiao Jin suddenly return to normal, as if nothing had happened, they looked at each other. Zhao Yuandu went to help Ji Mingming, who had fainted in the corner. Lu Xian and Tang Yiming saw Xiao Jin walk straight to the stone coffin and tentatively walked over. Chapter 688. Xiao Jin looked at the sarcophagus and narrowed his eyes. It was just a rare curse array point. She had just fallen into the array that he had set up. The two had nothing to do with each other, but they appeared in the same place. Therefore, it could be explained that this array master came later and did not know of the existence of this array master. No matter who it was, he was also locked in here. Xiao Jin sized it up for a moment. Lu Xian went forward to push the sarcophagus and said, We can't open it at all. There isn't even an opening. This kind of unscientific method of casting made it seem like a model of a sarcophagus was built to suppress it here. Tang Yiming looked and listened for a while. Suddenly he said, There's something inside. He still had some eyesight. It was not easy to sense what was inside the sarcophagus. Lu Run walked up with a pale face. He was still staring at Xiao Jin with vigilance. When he was about 8 feet away from him, he asked, Could the array point be inside the sarcophagus? Lu Xian said, It's possible even if it's placed on a corpse. If we don't open the sarcophagus, we can't get the thing. Tang Yiming looked around. It's impossible to open it. There's a restriction array set up here. Other than this array master, we only have. Just as he finished speaking, Xiao Jin had already reached out to pinch a few red threads of the array and strung them on the sarcophagus. Rumble. The sarcophagus made a strange sound, as if it was forcefully opened by someone. There was actually an obvious crack. It was the crack of the sarcophagus. Cracks appeared on the body of the sarcophagus and the lid. The entire sarcophagus was shaking. The lid was also shaking violently. Soon, a wide crack appeared. From within the crack, a faint glimmer of light could be seen. It was as if something was emitting light from inside. In an instant, it lit up a corner of the hall. Lu Xian, who was closest to the sarcophagus, narrowed his eyes. He reached out to grab something, but a ray of light rushed out from the sarcophagus and went straight for Xiao Jin. He missed it by a hair's breadth. Xiao Jin reached out and looked at Lu Xian with a faint smile. Didn't I say that the array point belongs to me? Lu Xian's face was livid. Before the few people beside her could react, Xiao Jin had already taken the array point. That was fucking infuriating. Lu Ren stood at the side and looked at Zhao Yuandan in the distance. Although he was angry, he didn't do anything to snatch it. Lu Xian clenched his fists tightly and glared at Xiao Jin. In the end, he looked away and gave up. However, Tang Yiming's sight was not on Xiao Jin. He did not even pay attention to the formation point that had rushed out at the first moment. His eyes were tightly locked on the inside of the stone coffin. There was some horror in his eyes, but there was also an inexplicable infatuation, as if he had seen something extraordinary. Xiao Jin already felt that there was something special inside, and it was still alive. She took 2 steps forward, and the lid of the coffin let out a huge rumbling sound as it was smashed to the side. What appeared in front of Xiao Jin and the others was a woman in a bright red robe. She had a tasseled crown on her head. Even in today's modern times, it was a rare handicraft. What was more shocking was her beautiful and enchanting face. Her eyes were tightly closed, and her perfect lips were as red as blood. She was so alive that even her skin was porcelain white and flawless. It was as if she was just sleeping quietly and not a dead person. Chapter 689. What is this? As array formation masters, Tang Yiming and the rest were quite knowledgeable. They had only heard of immortality from some old monsters, and they had to pay a hefty price for it. However, this was the first time they had seen an array formation master whose corpse had not decayed. No one would doubt the woman in front of them, even if she said that she had just fallen asleep. Her face even had a certain seductiveness to it. It was so beautiful that it was suffocating, as if it could make people lose themselves in her beauty. Xiao Jin lowered her eyes to take a look, and a hint of interest suddenly appeared in her eyes. The main array point on her body had already been taken, but there was still another array point on this corpse. It was right at her heart. She was dead, and her heart was no longer beating. That array point just stayed there quietly. If not for Xiao Jin, no one would have discovered it. However, what interested Xiao Jin was not this, but the woman in front of her was actually gathering a kind of vitality quickly. She was about to be resurrected. She was really coming back from the dead. Anyone who came back from the dead had to pay a price, and Xiao Jin was the same. She was still wandering in the river of time for 10,000 years, but the woman in front of her was actually gathering vitality. What was the price she had to pay? The karma on her body indicated that she had already paid the price. There was no need to think about it. It was a very tragic price. So she was interested. This woman was about to be resurrected, and she wanted to take her away. However, the others did not know. The others gathered around. Xiao Jin turned around and took a look. Ji Mingming was still unconscious. She waved her hand, and Ji Mingming woke up in a daze. Seeing Zhao Yuandan's shocked expression, Xiao Jin said, "Nothing happened to her. She was just blinded by the array formation. She's fine now." Ji Mingming also asked in a timely manner, "What happened?" Zhao Yuandan heaved a sigh of relief. The few of them came closer and saw the woman in the stone coffin. Ji Mingming exclaimed and expressed her opinion first. "So beautiful. Why are all the girls in this kind of coffin so beautiful?" "Everyone," Zhao Yuandan said faintly, "usually, these are either goddesses or female ghosts. Which one do you want to see?" Lu Xian, on the other hand, had a sullen look on his face. Her body did not decay after death. She must have used a formation to exert pressure. She must be a formidable monster. We have already obtained the formation point. Let's destroy her body and leave as soon as possible. Ji Mingming immediately said, "That's not a good idea. What if this is the ancient array master? What if we get into trouble? She's good at curses." Lu Ren glared at her. "What can we do? What if an even bigger problem occurred? Or should we go back the way we came and pretend that nothing happened?" Most importantly, there was nothing in the coffin except for the woman. He couldn't possibly strip her of her clothes. The formation points were also gone, and he didn't get anything. This trip could be considered a waste of time. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Xiao Jin looked at Lu Run and said faintly, "Lu Run, do me a favor? Carry her up, and I'll give you the 10 million. Lu Run, are you fucking crazy? Not only Lu Run, but the others also looked at Xiao Jin in horror when they heard this. Zhao Yuandan couldn't help but say, "You want to carry this female corpse? This is a corpse." They had seen many dead people. It was impossible for them to carry a corpse and run. Xiao Jin sighed. "Forget it then." Chapter 690. Since they weren't willing to carry it, he could only trick them into leaving first. Then he would send the coffin back. People in this era didn't even care about 10 million yuan. Lu Xian and the others stared at Xiao Jin as if they were having cramps. Who would dare to do such a thing? Now that they had obtained the formation point and dealt with the matter, they naturally had to go back and report. Originally, they didn't know how to return. But as soon as they walked out of the underground palace, a path appeared. After walking out, they appeared in front of a cave. When they had arrived, the sky had still been dark. But now, the sky was turning white. Zhao Yuandan muttered, "Strange. It felt like we had only been down there for half an hour." Ji Mingming asked why Xiao Jin had suddenly appeared in a different place from them. When they had fallen into a small path. Not long after, they had reached the underground palace. Then Xiao Jin had suddenly attacked Ji Mingming. That was why they had seen that scene just now. Xiao Jin naturally didn't say that he had seen something else. He only said, "Your eyes are playing tricks on you. I've always been by your side." When she had appeared, Lu Run had been glaring at her. They hadn't been here for that long. Lu Run still looked at Xiao Jin doubtfully. Xiao Jin now understood that other than Tang Yiming and Lu Xian, the other formation masters were just formation masters. Just like Duan Nianru. Even if they were formation masters, it didn't mean that they were all scheming and astute. They just happened to have the ability of formation masters. In fact, they didn't even know what some basic formations were. As expected, formation masters were incomparably rare. Even if they gathered together, they were completely useless. If Xiao Jin hadn't come today, they would have all died. As formation masters, they were usually flattered. They had seen too little. It was no wonder Xiao Jin had obtained the formation point. Other than Lu Xian and Tang Yiming, the others hadn't said a word. Lu Ren only hated Xiao Jin for taking it. Did they know what the formation point was used for? Not necessarily. Just as Xiao Jin was about to speak, he suddenly felt something. She glanced into the forest and suddenly said, "You guys go first. I'll catch up later." Lu Ren said, "If you take the array points, you should at least go back and report it to us. Do you want to keep it for yourself?" Xiao Jin glanced at him. "This array point was originally mine to take. Do you have a problem with that?" Lu Ren, Lu Xian and the others were full of anger. When they left, they glanced at Xiao Jin and warned him, "You've taken the array point, but you'd better not touch the female corpse inside. Otherwise, you'll be the one to suffer." He waved his hand and left. Zhao Yuandan and the others glanced at him and could only choose to follow him. Ji Mingming only urged, "Sister Xiao Jin, hurry up." After they left, Xiao Jin walked in a direction. Before he took 2 steps, Song Yanqing's figure slowly walked out of the forest. He was wearing a coat and looked like an elegant gentleman. However, he didn't look well, and he didn't know how long he had been there. Xiao Jin frowned and said, "You directly teleported here?" Song Yanqing nodded. When he saw Xiao Jin, he felt a lot more at ease. He stepped forward and grabbed Xiao Jin's arm. "I heard you call me." "Call you?" Xiao Jin suddenly remembered that when he was in the cave, he did call Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing felt it. Chapter 691. Xiao Jin found it strange that they were so far away from each other. In her mind, the memory might be related to Song Yanqing, and it became closer. Why was Song Yanqing so sensitive to her? However, this was not a good place to talk. Xiao Jin said, "Let's go back and talk. Wait for me to make a call first." Song Yanqing nodded. She lowered her eyes slightly and saw Xiao Jin's wrist. Fortunately, it seemed that nothing had happened. Xiao Jin took Song Yanqing back first. They went in the opposite direction from Ji Mingming and the others, mainly because they couldn't see Song Yanqing coming. He found a place with some signal and gave Ming Qingyu a call. Ming Qingyu was a little surprised when she received the call. Xiao Jin, Xiao Jin said gently, Ming Qingyu, I need you to do me a favor. Is Yang Qilu the only one at home now? Ming Qingyu said, It's okay. Just tell me. I'll help you if I can. Yang Qilu is not at home now. Sister He Yao has something to do and has to go to another city. She has nothing to do, so she was called by Sister He Yao to take care of the child. There's no one at home now. He Yao was still taking care of Lan Xiaoni. Now that Yang Qilu was taking care of her, she had found something to do. Xiao Jin said, It's good that there's no one at home. I need to put something in it, but it's a little abrupt. If you don't want to, forget it. Ming Qingyu didn't hesitate. Put anything. Is it a delivery? Xiao Jin said, A coffin. There's a female corpse in the coffin. Song Yanqing suddenly looked up. Ming Qingyu. Even though her temperament had already reached a higher level, she still felt as if she had received a huge blow when she heard this sentence. She couldn't help but lower her voice. Did you kill someone? He seriously suspected that Xiao Jin wanted to destroy the evidence. Xiao Jin chuckled. Of course not. This female corpse is an ancient person. She is very far away from us and can be resurrected at any time. I need to put her in a safe place where I can control her. Ming Qingyu now felt that following Xiao Jin was really an eye-opener. She sucked in a breath of cold air. It can be resurrected? Why was the operation so mysterious now? Xiao Jin said, Yes, and it should be soon. She even suspected that the array point in her heart was one of the 9 array points. It seemed that the fact that the formation points all fell on the hearts of living people was going to be overturned. Ming Qingyu hesitated for a moment before agreeing. It's fine. You can let it go. I won't go back either. I'll tell Yang Qilu not to go back for the time being. Xiao Jin thought for a moment. She's pretty. Ming Qingyu. Boss, this wasn't a matter of whether she was pretty or not. The other party was a female corpse. However, Song Yanqing seemed to be amused. He pursed his lips into a smile and looked at Xiao Jin with a slightly amused expression. Since Ming Qingyu had agreed, Xiao Jin was much more direct. She used the array formation to teleport the stone coffin directly to Ming Qingyu's house in the imperial capital thousands of miles away. Even if the people from the spirit group went back to investigate, they wouldn't be able to find the underground palace. Once the coffin disappeared, the entire mountain range shook slightly. When they came back again, they couldn't find any trace of it. After hanging up, she looked at Song Yanqing and said in a relaxed tone, Let's go. After this matter is settled, I'll tell you something interesting. Song Yanqing nodded. He didn't ask anything. In any case, Xiao Jin would tell him anyway. He felt that she must have discovered something this time. Chapter 692. Xiao Jin left with Song Yanqing. The road in the jungle was not easy to walk on. In addition, Song Yanqing had suddenly appeared. Xiao Jin directly teleported him to the city. Soon, they found a place to rest in a room. Fortunately, Song Yanqing had prepared an ID card before they came. After entering the hotel room, Song Yanqing sat on the sofa to rest. At this time, his face was a little pale. It was obvious to the naked eye that his complexion was not good. Xiao Jin said, Your body can't withstand such a long-distance teleportation. His ability was now slowly growing. Even if his progress was rapid, it was not like this. Song Yanqing opened his eyes and looked at him deeply. His tone was very soft. I heard you call me. He was worried, so he came directly. In addition, he could not reach him on the phone. Xiao Jin raised his eyebrows. You heard me call you? Such a long distance meant that it was abnormal. Song Yanqing nodded. Yes, it was a bit like an auditory hallucination, but I don't think I heard wrong. He saw Xiao Jin's expression and said directly, You really called me, didn't you? Seeing that he had guessed it, Xiao Jin nodded. So I feel that something is wrong. Xiao Jin pursed his lips and sat beside Song Yanqing. It was so far away. Before you came, you did not dream that this matter was related to you. But you heard me call you. I followed them and did find the mausoleum of an ancient array master. The sarcophagus I mentioned just now was that array master's. The woman was a female corpse, but now she is going to be resurrected. Of course, this is not the key problem. The key is that there was an array I set up in the place where she was. I heard your voice in the array. Song Yanqing listened attentively and frowned when he heard that. You heard my voice? What was it? It was possible that something else was luring her. But with her ability, such a thing could not happen. It was very natural. It was a very normal question, as if he was right beside her. Only when she turned her head did she realize that there was no Song Yanqing beside her. Xiao Jin's eyes swept across his face. There's something I didn't say. I actually forgot some things, but these things are very far away. In the memories I lost, there seems to be something about your existence. But she was very sure that she should not have met the modern Song Yanqing. After she woke up, her memories of the 20 years in the modern world were clear. There was not a single scene where Song Yanqing appeared. About me? Song Yanqing said in a low voice. He understood what Xiao Jin was implying and understood that Xiao Jin was probably not referring to the current period of time. He knew very well that he had never met Xiao Jin when he was young. She suddenly stretched out her hand. Her slender fingertips were a little cold. She touched Song Yanqing's eyebrows and said in a thoughtful tone, "Is it reincarnation?" Reincarnation was actually a rather vague thing. Once a person died, all the karma would be cut off cleanly. Even she could not tell what a person's previous life was. There was no example to prove it. Then reincarnation was just a fake thing. Her example was a bit like reincarnation, but it was not. Only Song Yanqing didn't have any shadow at all, but it was strange. Unless, like Xiao Jin, he was resurrected through a special channel, but he forgot. Chapter 693. Song Yanqing also understood the meaning in her words and couldn't help but laugh. Do you think that I'm the same as you? Xiao Jin shook his head. Right now, it's just a guess. You don't have any memories, so I can only guess. If you are related to me, then it's very regretful, because I don't even know who you are. She didn't remember if there was a person called Song Yanqing in her memories. Song Yanqing was also a pure modern person. Even if there was a problem, it was impossible for the current her to know. I'm not the shadow of anyone in your memories. Song Yanqing suddenly grabbed Xiao Jin's wrist. His pitch-black eyes looked at Xiao Jin, and he said seriously, I'm just Song Yanqing. Of course I know. Xiao Jin took his hand back and said, You're Song Yanqing. I won't mistake you for anyone else. It's just that right now, things are a bit strange. Song Yanqing's expression relaxed, and his eyes were still as gentle as ever. You sense danger? Xiao Jin shook his head. There's no danger. It was just that there were a few more unsolved mysteries. Right now, that sarcophagus has already been moved out by me. It's also possible that she just built a mausoleum in my formation. It's a coincidence, but it's not a coincidence that she has an extra formation point on her body. Things were always progressing step by step. She would get an answer sooner or later. Song Yanqing couldn't help but ask, You found another formation point? Xiao Jin nodded. That female corpse's heart is the same as Ming Qingyu and Yang Qiulu's. They both have a formation point. At the moment, this formation point is completely useless to them, but it can be used to suppress them. Xiao Jin had told Song Yanqing about the 9 formation points. Now, Song Yanqing could understand. He found the third one so quickly. His speed was quite fast. Song Yanqing asked, Can she come back to life? Xiao Jin nodded. Yes. Song Yanqing was a little curious. I'll go back with you to see her? Xiao Jin. Sure. Not long after she talked to Song Yanqing, she received a call from Ji Mingming. Sister Xiao Jin, where are you? Xiao Jin said, I've already returned to the hotel. You guys can go back first. I'll be back soon. Ji Mingming was a little embarrassed. Oh, Xiao Jin could tell that she was implying something, so she said, I'll give you an explanation when I get back. As for what kind of explanation it was, that was just a superficial explanation. Ji Mingming, Okay. Although they were array masters, there was still a huge gap between them. She, Zhao Yuandan, and the others were too young to understand many things about array masters. This time, they were brought here purely because they were forced to do something beyond their abilities. Xiao Jin could already tell. If such a group of people could challenge the ancient array master's mausoleum, the future of the spirit group was indeed bleak. How should he put it? The standard of spiritual readers nowadays was getting worse with each generation. After hanging up the phone, Lu Ran was still grumbling on the other side. We didn't feel like we were in any danger. We didn't even see the array. It was all broken by that woman. I now suspect that this is a trap, just to lure us in. Lucien could not help but say, "Shut up. If she wanted to kill you, with your vigilance, you would have died 8 times over. That mausoleum of array masters is really not that easy to break into. She solved it so easily. Doesn't that make you think of something else?" Xiao Jin was even more terrifying than the ancient array masters. Although a dead array master could not compare to a living one, how could modern people understand the ancient array masters from thousands of years ago? Chapter 694. Xiao Jin didn't take it seriously at all. It was enough to see how dangerous she was. So Lucien just looked a little unwilling when the array point was taken, but he didn't dare to say anything. Lucien's position in the spirit group was different. After being scolded by him, Lu Run still stopped. He only said resentfully, "Isn't it because she took advantage of us, Tang Yiming? I now suspect that the destruction of the Feng family was not an accident." He was usually a man of few words. His sudden words made Lucien look over. Lucien and Tang Yiming both had a deep look in their eyes. They were obviously thinking the same thing. It wasn't an accident. Lu Ren waved his hand and said, "Didn't they say it was done by someone? Even if it's their weakness, they have to be capable." Zhao Yuandan couldn't listen anymore. With the background of the Feng family in the capital, who dares to touch them? The mastermind behind this incident didn't even leave a trace. It was terrifying. Ji Mingming didn't say anything. Lucien said, "After we go back this time, just answer the questions truthfully. As for the rest, keep quiet." That was something Xiao Jin would deal with. If something went wrong here, who knew what would happen? Zhao Yuandan thought for a while and suddenly said, "Is that female corpse the ancient array master?" Everyone was silent for a while. Ji Mingming guessed, "It seems like it. Didn't Xiao Jin want to take her away at that time? He even wanted to take the corpse away." Zhao Yuandan gasped. "He is really a ruthless person." Several people were discussing here. On the other side, Xiao Jin also returned to the capital with Song Yanqing. They said they were going to deal with the matter, and it was done quickly. 10 million yuan was too easy to get. Of course, she said that she wouldn't take the money after taking the array point, so she didn't ask the spirit group for the money. She only told Zhong Li Peining what happened. Zhong Li Peining was very smart. After listening to the whole analysis, she didn't ask any unnecessary nonsense. She only asked, "That female corpse is the array master. Is she dead?" Xiao Jin smiled and said, "Of course he's dead. Do you think that a formation master who lived until now didn't have to pay a price?" Zhong Li Peining smiled embarrassedly. "Are you holding the curse array points?" Xiao Jin nodded.
Yes.
Zhong Li Peining nodded, as if she didn't want to ask about other information. Xiao Jin's interest was piqued. "Don't you want to know more? I'm sure you guys will be full of questions now." Just like that day when the spirit group was monitoring her, they even suspected that Xiao Jin was a dangerous person. Zhong Li Peining smiled embarrassedly. "To be honest, we had to monitor you because of the rules, but now we don't think it's necessary." This matter was also a test. Xiao Jin didn't feel any pressure at all. They weren't stupid. The person in front of them was a big boss through and through. Why would he need others to control him? After hesitating for a moment, Zhong Li Peining said, "I know some things are redundant, but I still have to say it. Our spirit group itself isn't under the jurisdiction of ordinary people, but we also have to maintain social stability and rely on the country. We have always been independent, so except for a few families, Everything is basically decided internally by the spirit group. Xiao Jin, I think you are a person who knows how to respect life, so don't do things like the Feng family. The Feng family had infiltrated the spirit group from the beginning, and they hid it too well. The spirit group couldn't find any substantial evidence. Chapter 695. If one day they found out that Xiao Jin had done something similar, with her ability, she would definitely be classified as a terrorist. Modern technology might not be able to deal with Xiao Jin, but spiritual readers were also ordinary humans. They could also grow old, get sick, and die. At that time, it would not only be the spirit group who would find out that something was wrong, but also the country. Even if they had to make a lot of sacrifices, they would probably do anything to make Xiao Jin disappear. Now that Xiao Jin had not made any moves, and she was very strong, the spirit group would naturally not cause any trouble. Xiao Jin was a little excited and did not care about Zhongli Peining's words. She knew that she was just reminding her out of kindness. This proved that the current spirit group was powerless to control Xiao Jin. As long as she did not want to destroy the world, everyone could talk. You don't have to worry about this. Xiao Jin smiled and said, I am not interested in anyone. As long as they did not provoke her, no matter if they were spiritual readers or ordinary people, they were all the same in her eyes. When Zhongli Peining heard her words, she also felt a little relieved. She smiled and said, Then I will go back and report first. You can look for me in the future if you need anything. Xiao Jin, go. Zhongli Peining was going back to the organization. She and Song Yanqing were going to see the female corpse. Song Yanqing returned to the capital and went back to the Song family first. He disappeared early in the morning, scaring Dan out of his wits. When he returned, Dan was in the living room enduring Song Shirin's anger. He was almost crying for his father and mother. When he saw Song Yanqing, he seemed to be about to cry. Young master, why did you go to Nanjiang? They found out that Song Yanqing boarded the plane back to the capital from Nanjiang, but how did he get there? When did he go? Dan wondered if he was a little delirious. Song Yanqing coughed softly. Last night, you fell asleep. I didn't wake you. Dan. He was so vigilant, but he didn't hear the young master's voice. Was the young master so scary now? Song Yanqing told Dan and went to see his father. No one knew what he said. In short, he came out in 10 minutes, and Song Shirin did not pursue it. When he came out, Song Yanqing called Dan. Send me to pick Xiao Jin. Yi muttered. Why is he with Miss Xiao every day? Even if he's in a relationship, he doesn't need to be so intimate. Isn't the company busy? When he received Xiao Jin, Song Yanqing asked her, Everything's settled. Because Dan was an outsider, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing didn't say anything. But he suddenly thought of something and said, I happen to have time. I've put off work today. How about I go to the Mu family with you tonight? Xiao Jin didn't object at all and said naturally, okay. She wanted to go back to school, but the Ling group had helped her apply for leave. It was better to go back to the Mu family. An interested smile appeared on Song Yanqing's lips. Do old Master Mu and Uncle have anything they like? Does Annie have any hobbies? She had to find the right medicine. After all, it was her first time visiting. She had to prepare a good gift. In the end, Xiao Jin failed. She thought carefully. After 3 seconds of silence, she said, I don't know about Jinming. Fei likes to play mahjong. Song Yanqing. Chapter 696. Song Yanqing was a little amused. Then I'll buy a few gifts. Xiao Jin said sincerely, they will like whatever you buy. With Song Yanqing's status, the gifts would not be too low, and the Mu family would not hate Song Yanqing. That being said, Song Yanqing winked at Dan, and Dan understood. Miss Xiao did not provide any information, so it was very easy for Dan to go out and ask around in the market. For them, it was not difficult to do these things. Young Master and Miss Xiao went to deal with things, and he could help Young Master choose the gifts. The car stopped downstairs in Meng Qingyu's neighborhood. It was broad daylight, and there were not many people downstairs. The car was not conspicuous nearby, but when Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin got out of the car, they attracted a lot of attention. They were used to this kind of attention and walked toward Meng Qingyu's house in the neighborhood. Although Meng Qingyu did not give them the key, it was too easy for Xiao Jin to enter the house. As soon as they entered, they saw the square stone coffin in the living room. The coffin lid was lifted, which meant that the stone coffin was now open. They only needed to take 2 steps forward to see the woman lying in the stone coffin. This scene was really challenging the limits of people's endurance. Meng Qingyu and Yang Qilu had made the right choice not to come back. Song Yanqing was a little puzzled. Why did you put her here? If you need a safe and hidden place, I can provide it. Yang Qilu and Meng Qingyu are both holders of the array points. I put her here to see if she will have any conflict with the two of them. When Meng Qingyu saw Yang Qilu, his heart beat so fast that Yang Qilu almost directly awakened. Song Yanqing nodded to show that he understood and walked over with Xiao Jin. This stunning woman was still lying in the stone coffin, wearing a black tasseled crown and a red robe, but it did not look like a wedding dress. For 1,000 years ago, human civilization had just begun to develop. Logically speaking, people should not have dressed like this. However, Xiao Jin himself had existed for tens of thousands of years. Naturally, he knew that some things had simply been buried over time. When Song Yanqing saw the woman in front of him, his dark pupils suddenly darkened. An image suddenly appeared in his mind. There were thousands of people kneeling on the ground. The wind swept up thousands of miles of yellow sand. They all knelt on the ground with solemn and dignified expressions. High Priest, with my life, with my blood, I offer it to the heavens. I hope that the High Priest will recover after 1,000 years and revive Qian Song. With my life, with my blood, I offer it to the heavens. I hope that the High Priest will recover after 1,000 years and revive Qian Song. Boundless, solemn, and even sorrowful. One by one, there were men and women, and there were even young and old. They knelt on the ground and prayed to the heavens. Then, their necks were slit. Bright red hot blood, like the most gorgeous and scorching rose, bloomed on the yellow sand. The yellow sand in the sky wailed, like the mournful wails of malicious spirits. In an instant, it engulfed the entire earth. The wind swept up the yellow sand, instantly enveloping all the shadows. All of this was buried under the yellow sand. This scene on the surface of the lake only lasted for a short 2 seconds. Song Yanqing frowned slightly and muttered, "High Priest? Was this the past he saw?" Xiao Jin instantly looked at him. "What did you see?" A spiritualist could see the past and know the future. This was a talent that could not be compared. Chapter 697. Song Yanqing looked at Xiao Jin and told her about the scene just now. Xiao Jin thought, for 1,000 years ago, this woman was a high priest? Song Yanqing asked her, using other people's lives in exchange for her own resurrection, is this theoretically feasible? Of course it's feasible. Xiao Jin said, as long as there is an array, the Feng family can borrow luck with life. This kind of 1,000 people's lives in exchange for the resurrection of a high priest, and it's voluntary. This is the first time I have seen this. This resurrected woman will have a big problem. Qian Song? Song Yanqing. I think if historians know about it, they will have a headache. Xiao Jin suddenly said, it's possible that she has existed for more than 4,000 years. In her era, the concept of a country had already begun, but all traces of what happened were covered up. Song Yanqing pondered for a moment and said, it's possible. If a country called Qian Song existed 4,000 years ago, then there will be no trace of it. It should be before this. Human civilization has records from 5,000 years ago. It might be even longer ago, but it was covered up by something. After all, if the spiritual psyche master existed, it was enough to cause a lot of things that modern society couldn't understand. Xiao Jin raised her eyebrows. Song Yanqing guessed correctly. She didn't say that she came from 10,000 years ago. The current problem was this woman called the High Priest. She was extremely beautiful. Now that she was lying quietly in the coffin, she looked very lifelike. If she was in the entertainment industry, any actress would be overshadowed by her bright face. Her vitality was getting stronger and stronger. In less than a week, she would be resurrected. At that time, only this woman's resurrection could give an answer. Xiao Jin didn't care about the secrets of this woman herself. She just wanted to know what the third array point represented in her body. She was a curse-type array master when she was alive, and she was resurrected by 1,000 people's blood sacrifice. Her strength was definitely not comparable to modern people. If Xiao Jin didn't exist, she might not know when she would wake up. It was obvious that the underground palace was passive, which was why there were signs of resurrection. Although she was beautiful, Song Yanqing lost interest after looking at her and confirming that she couldn't get more information. It was only because she was a person from 1,000 years ago that she had some interest. The most interested person might be the historian. Song Yanqing remembered that Xiao Jin said that she heard his voice in the cave, and he was still thinking about it. After looking at this woman, they left again. When he went downstairs, Adan stepped forward and said, "Young master, the things you need have been bought. It will be delivered in about an hour or two. Do you need to wait a little longer?" He also told Xiao Fei so that she could be mentally prepared. However, before it was evening, he received a call from Xiao Fei. Xiao Fei on the phone was furious. "Jin, are you in class now? Mom encountered something infuriating." Xiao Jin was a little surprised. "What's wrong with you?" Xiao Fei said angrily, "Didn't I tell you that your Uncle Mu used to have a confidant? She used to annoy me. Later, your Uncle Mu ignored her. Now that she is back, she even asked Uncle Mu to pick her up. Uncle Mu didn't pick her up. Now, she broke into our house and made things difficult for Grandpa Mu. She is making me angry." What a vixen. Xiao Fei was so angry. Chapter 698. After listening to Xiao Fei's complaint, Xiao Jin pondered for a moment and said, "Then I'll come back right away? I'm just outside the school right now." Xiao Fei was so busy with her own matters that she didn't even think about why Xiao Jin was outside. She quickly said, Okay, come back quickly and help your mother. She also brought her daughter over and tried to humiliate you." Xiao Jin. Who is she trying to humiliate? Xiao Jin hung up the phone, looked at Song Yanqing and whispered, "I have to go back first. Do you want to come with me or come over tonight?" Fei Fei asked me to go back. She said that there are strangers at home and something happened. Song Yanqing was next to him and vaguely heard a little bit of the conversation. He thought it was a little funny. "Wait for another 10 minutes. I'll go back with you. Okay?" Xiao Jin nodded. "Okay." Song Yanqing was waiting for Azai to ask someone to buy something. He also looked at the things, and they were indeed suitable gifts. After the gifts were sent over, he and Xiao Jin went to the Mu house together. Xiao Fei was a little restless in the living room. Naive and sweet people also have their own sensitive senses. When they were young, they had a quarrel with Bai Lian Hua in front of them. Now that they are older, they can no longer compete with each other. Bai Lian Hua is called Li Sikhan, and the daughter she brought is called Erin. She is the child of a rich businessman from abroad. In all fairness, Li Sikhan is quite good. When she was young, she was a famous rich beauty. She was used to putting on airs. At least in the eyes of others, she was a perfect rich beauty. If it weren't for the private argument between Xiao Fei and Li Sikhan, she would also be confused by Li Sikhan's performance. The current Li Sikhan is a very fashionable and delicate lady. Like Xiao Fei, she is very well maintained. She is beautiful and generous. In front of her, her daughter is somewhat overshadowed. Li Sikhan's father and Mu Xiangshan were partners. Although he went abroad early, Li Sikhan and Mu Jinming were childhood sweethearts and had a good relationship. If it wasn't for the fact that Mu Jinming had no interest in her, who knew who Madame Mu would be now? The only reason Xiao Fei could smile now was because of her good attitude. At least on the surface, Li Sikhan was quite good. Even Mu Xiangshan didn't think there was anything wrong with her. Only Xiao Fei had quarreled with her in private. At this time, he completely understood Li Sikhan's attitude. She had a good relationship with her husband now. It was just that she came back to vomit Xiao Fei. She called Mu Jinming. In the end, when Mu Jinming called home, It was Xiao Fei who went to the gate to pick him up. On the way there, the two of them had already mocked and ridiculed each other. Both of them had a successful family business and had both children. However, Li Saiken's son was working abroad and had not returned. This time, Li Sikhan had brought her daughter, so this battle could be considered a draw. While chatting, they began to talk about their daughter. Li Sikhan didn't come back for a long time, so she knew that Xiao Fei had a daughter. Curious, she stepped on Xiao Fei's sore spot. Xiao Jin was once framed for taking drugs. This made Xiao Fei very angry. Now, she was pretending to talk about small talk in front of Mu Xiangshan. Women don't like each other. At least, that's how Xiao Fei felt. She learned to smile in social interactions while calculating in her heart how long it would take for Xiao Jin to come back. My daughter is much prettier than your daughter. She will blind your dog eyes, she thought angrily in her heart. Chapter 699. Li Saiken's appearance was bright and generous. She was wearing a lake green cheongsam with a knitted shawl on her shoulders. Her short hair was permed into big waves. She had the flavor of a woman from the era. Her daughter sat beside her cautiously and talked to Mu Xiangshan. When the servant's voice came from outside, Xiao Fei stood up excitedly. Xiao Jin's shadow appeared. More importantly, she brought Song Yanqing with her. Xiao Fei was a little shocked. Why was Lord Song here? When Xiao Jin brought Song Yanqing in, Song Yanqing called out gently from afar. Grandpa Mu, Aunt Xiao. Mu Xiangshan saw Song Yanqing and raised his eyebrows. Yanqing, you're here? His tone was amiable. The smile on Li Saiken's face slowly faded when he saw Song Yanqing. Who was this young master? With a single glance, one could tell that he was an extraordinary talent. As for the girl beside him, sure enough, Xiao Fei smiled and said, Jan, why did you bring Lord Song back? Li Saiken's daughter was younger than Xiao Jin. When she saw Song Yanqing, her eyes were filled with unconcealable amazement. However, there was still a hint of restraint in her eyes, but she refused to look away from Song Yanqing. Let me introduce you. Xiao Fei pointed at Li Sikhan with a smile. This is Zhenming's good friend, Aunt Li Sikhan. Xiao Jin nodded. Song Yanqing said, hello? He didn't call anyone, but his tone was polite enough. Li Sikhan looked at Song Yanqing and then at Xiao Jin. She suddenly felt a little suffocated. Xiao Fei showed off without a trace. Miss Li, this is my daughter, Xiao Jin. This is her boyfriend, Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing's smile softened. He looked at Xiao Fei and said, Aunt Xiao, I'm here to formally visit you. This is a little gift. He handed the things in his hand to Xiao Fei. Xiao Fei was a little surprised. You just came to visit. Why did you bring a gift? Mu Xiangshan also had a gift. Xiao Jin handed it to him. This is from Song Yanqing. Mu Xiangshan took it and didn't rush to open it. He raised his chin slightly. Sit down first. Let's have dinner here. It just so happens that Si-chan is back, and the house is lively. Song Yanqing, okay. Xiao Jin didn't object. Xiao Fei took Song Yanqing's gift. Li Sikhan looked at Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing. After a while, she smiled. Hello, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing, right? I didn't expect Xiao Fei's daughter to be so big after so many years. She looked at Xiao Jin and sized her up. There seemed to be a trace of disbelief in her eyes. Xiao Fei raised such a daughter? She kept these words in her heart and introduced her daughter, Erin, at the same time. Erin looked at the two and greeted them carefully. Although she had been paying attention to Song Yanqing, when she heard that he was Xiao Jin's boyfriend, her gaze couldn't be too warm. She looked away, but still looked a little shy. She didn't look like a child raised abroad. Later, Xiao Fei came downstairs. They sat in the living room downstairs and talked about the past. Now that Xiao Jin was back, Xiao Fei was more confident. He spoke to Li Sikhan more firmly. The two talked about the past. Xiao Jin heard a lot about Xiao Fei and Mu Zhenming. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.